Today marks the beginning of yet another incredible journey from Axium Space and SpaceX as we lead the way in expanding access to low Earth orbit for all of humanity. You are looking at a live shot of the Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft that will carry the next 4 private astronauts to the International Space Station in just over 3 hours from now. To everyone around the globe tuning in, hello and welcome to the live launch webcast for the Axiom Mission 2, or as we call it, AX2. My name is Duke Brady, and I'm a multimedia specialist with Axium Space based out of Houston, Texas.
And I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. Duke, it's so good to have you and the Axium teams with us today.
Very excited.
Today's mission is a pretty cool milestone for SpaceX. AX-2 is our 10th human spaceflight mission overall and our 9th human spaceflight mission to the orbiting laboratory since we started flying people back in 2020 with NASA's Demo 2 mission. It also marks SpaceX's second human spaceflight mission this year, following the NASA Crew 6 launch in March to the International Space Station. The AX-2 crew will be joining Expedition 69 and Dragon Endeavour, all still currently on station. As we count down today's scheduled liftoff, we'll be keeping you updated on the status of the crew, launch vehicle, systems, weather, and all the technical aspects of launch. And in between, we'll be taking you behind the scenes of the AX-2 mission, what led up to this moment, and what to expect during the course of this 10-day mission.
For Axiom Space, this mission builds on the incredible success of our first all-private astronaut crew to the ISS last year, the AX-1 mission, and takes us one step closer to building and operating Axiom Station, the world's first private space station, which is currently under construction. AX-2 is the second of four missions SpaceX will launch for Axiom Space, and today's launch is the culmination of years of effort by teams at Axiom Space to expand the opportunities of private citizens and sovereign nations around the world so that they can partake in the incredible science, research, and STEAM education-related activities in low Earth orbit. In fact, we just recently announced Axiom Space Access Program, which is designed to enable countries to realize long-term economic and scientific value in microgravity. So if you want to fly to space, or if your organization wants to conduct research and manufacturing efforts in microgravity, we have the teams that can help you develop your program. We believe that the commercial effort and presence in low Earth orbit has a duty to expand research and manufacturing capabilities conducted in space for the benefit of all humankind. And that's a big part of what makes today's mission so exciting. Two members of our crew are citizens of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, or KSA. They are Rayana Barnawi, the first ever Saudi female to fly to space, and Ali Al-Qarni, a captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force. Together, they are following in the footsteps of Sultan bin Salman Al Said, who flew aboard Space Shuttle Discovery in 1985. But they also represent the first Saudi national astronaut class, which we had the honor of helping select and train in preparation for this moment.
Really exciting stuff. Now, turning our attention to the crew, they are suiting up inside right behind those doors that you see there. That's SpaceX's Falcon support building.
Displays are configured for crew ingress, and advanced team work is complete and ready for crew arrival on schedule.
All right, just a call out there from our SpaceX core, letting all teams know on Countdown that we're tracking on time. So that's great news to hear.
Great.
So yeah, they are getting suited up right now in preparation for their liftoff from that launch pad right there. That, of course, is the historic Launch Complex 39A at Kennedy Space Center in Florida. Once they arrive at the space station, the crew will spend 8 days living and working on board before returning to Earth.
Yes, and over the course of that 10-day journey, the AX-2 crew will conduct a wide range of research, including several experiments that will help us understand more than ever about how our human bodies respond to microgravity. The data they'll collect will be critical to furthering human exploration of space, and along the way will inspire dreamers, thinkers, and explorers to follow in their footsteps.
Every human spaceflight crew is unique, with each astronaut bringing their own background and expertise to the mission. With that, let's introduce you to the AX-2 crew.
The AX-2 mission is commanded by retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. Born and raised in Beaconsfield, Iowa, she was inspired, along with the world, when we watched the Apollo 11 crew walk on the moon. She has since become the most experienced American astronaut and one of the most decorated. Whitson flew 3 long-duration missions to the ISS and has more cumulative time in space, 665 days, than any U.S. astronaut and more than any woman in the world. She has conducted 10 spacewalks with over 60 hours out in the vacuum of space and has performed hundreds of research experiments on board the ISS. Not only is she the commander for this mission, but Peggy also serves as the director of human spaceflight for Axiom Space.
The pilot for AX-2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. Born in Alaska and raised in Kentucky, Schaffner is a STEAM education advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast. A pilot since the age of 17, John has over 8,500 flight hours holding commercial, instrument, single-engine, and multi-engine ratings in land and sea aircraft, as well as helicopter. He also holds ratings in former military jets and high-performance radial engine aircraft. As an athlete, John has years of competitive experience in water skiing, cycling, whitewater kayaking, hang gliding, skydiving, and base jumping. John trained as the AX-1 backup pilot, and during this mission plans to invest a lot of his time in STEAM education activities aimed at empowering educators and inspiring teachers.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Ali Al-Karni was born in March 1992 in Sabt al-Alaya, Saudi Arabia. Ali is fluent in English as well as his native Arabic. And as an Air Force captain, Ali has 12 years of experience flying on multiple aircraft, primarily on the F-15SA in service to the Royal Saudi Air Force. Ali graduated with a Bachelor of Aerospace Science degree in 2013 from King Faisal Air Academy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
Also representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi was born in September 1988 in Jeddah, Saudi Arabia. Rayana has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, and also has a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. If that wasn't enough knowledge, she is fluent in English and Turkish, as well as native Arabic. She has been a research lab technician since 2013 in the Stem Cell and Tissue Reengineering Program at King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center located in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia.
There you have it, the AX-2 crew. This really is an amazing group of people who have spent months preparing for this moment. We are already beyond proud of them and can't wait to see them in space.
At the moment, they should be making their final preparations inside our Falcon support building, and then soon they'll be making their first public appearance, fully suited and ready to fly. They should be walking out of those doors here in just a couple of minutes.
Yes, absolutely. But as excited as we are for this crew and their launch, there have been entire communities of loved ones, both friends and family, around the world who have been looking forward to this moment for quite some time, actually. So to Peggy, John, Ali, and Rayana, here are a few words from those who love you to help mark this occasion.
Hey, John, just wanted to take a second and give you a big shout out and tell you how proud we are that you're representing Middlesbrough and all of us on your mission to the International Space Station. We want to say thank you for allowing us to be part of your experience and taking us beyond the crater.
John, have fun, Godspeed.
Have fun.
Going to outer space. I am so fired up for you. You have no idea. Wish you the best of luck, and please, please do send me a postcard from up there.
Congratulations. I'm so excited for you, John. Woo! Excellent. Good job.
Wish you the best of luck. I don't know who these people are, but they will also want to wish you a safe and excellent mission. Enjoy and say hi to the boys from all of us.
Yes.
Good luck.
Hey, boy. Tell the skies. A new star is rising. An angel with a beauty ever so shiny. A blessing that showers and glow. Go out there and be the light.
Such a sweet insight into all that support and all those friends and family.
Super touching.
That's great. The entire Axium Space team and all of our partners truly appreciate and are humbled by the worldwide interest and support for this historic flight today. As the crew wraps up their preparations inside the Falcon support building, Let's provide a bit of an overview of the operations for today. It's been a pretty busy morning already for the AX2 crew. They woke up at about 9 a.m. Eastern, had their first medical checks of the day, and then shared a meal with their quarantine support staff. At 12:20 Eastern, they departed the quarantine facility and flew to Kennedy Space Center for a special moment with family and friends at the tarmac of the KSC launch and landing facility. This event also marked the formal handoff of the crew to SpaceX for today's launch.
Around T-minus 3 hours and 50 minutes, the crew arrived at the suit-up room and began putting their suits on. Right around then, we also had the crew pre-launch briefing, and that's where we share weather and launch details and basically give them their tablets, which they get to bring with them during flight. And all of that brings us to where we currently are, suit up. We are awaiting for them to make their appearance, but yeah, there's been a lot of activity.
Absolutely. And we know at about T-minus 3 hours and 25 minutes, the crew began suiting up, and once that process is complete, they'll exit the Falcon support building and get into their Teslas. We will have 2 astronauts in each of the Teslas, led by a support vehicle.
After that, it's a short drive to the launch pad, and once they arrive, the crew will ascend the fixed service structure in an elevator up to the 255-foot level. That's the structure you see there on your screen to the right of the rocket. The crew will then take the stairs up the last 10 feet, where they will stop and make one final phone call before walking down that crew access arm to the White Room. The White Room is their last stop before climbing into the spacecraft, a process known as crew ingress. During ingress, the SpaceX team will run a series of checks to ensure the suits, seats, and vehicle interactions are all functioning properly. After all the vehicle and crew checkouts are completed, the SpaceX closeout team will close Dragon's side hatch and depart the pad. At about T-minus 40 minutes, the crew access arm will retract away, followed by the arming of the launch escape system. Once the arm is retracted and the escape system is armed, propellant loading will begin on Falcon 9. At T-minus 5 minutes, Dragon will be configured for what we call terminal count. This is when Dragon's onboard computers take control of the spacecraft. And finally, the moment we're all waiting for, T0, Dragon and Falcon will lift off from pad 39A. Roughly 12 minutes after liftoff, Falcon will separate from Falcon 9's second stage and spend the next 16 hours making its way to the International Space Station.
Good afternoon. I'm John Innsbrucker, Falcon 9 Principal Integration Engineer here at SpaceX. We're currently at T-minus 3 hours, 13 minutes, and 18 seconds, and everything looks good for an on-time launch later today. Now, as Kate mentioned, the crew received a weather briefing just at T-minus 4 hours. Now, the good news is the probability of violating launch conditions has decreased since yesterday. We're down to only a 25% chance of a violation today. The main constraint we're tracking is upper altitude anvil clouds. The ground level winds are not a concern. We're up to about maybe 17, 18 miles an hour. The upper level wind shear also is expected to be low, but as we get later in the afternoon here in Florida, the upper altitude winds could blow some of the clouds inland over the launch site in the ascent trajectory. We are, of course, tracking weather all along the ascent and recovery corridors today, and we'll keep you posted as we continue to monitor those environments. But currently, ascent weather looks good. Now, at pad 39A, as you can see on your monitor, Falcon 9 is powered up. Engine checkouts were performed overnight. Pressurization of the gas storage tanks on the Falcon 9 completed about T-minus 4.5 hours. Now, at T-minus 2 hours, Falcon will begin its final checks for launch. There will also be a communication check with the crew coming up at about T-minus 1 hour and 55 minutes. And of course, propellant loading will begin at T-minus 35 minutes. Now, as with all of our launches to the International Space Station, we have an instantaneous launch window at 5:37 p.m. Eastern Daylight Saving Time, or 21 hours, 37 minutes Universal Time. If for whatever reason we are not able to launch today, our next opportunity will be just under 24 hours later on Monday, May 22nd.
All right, at this point in time, we're at T-minus 3 hours, 11 minutes, and 20 seconds. At this moment, we are roughly 5 minutes before the crew is expected to walk out of the Falcon support building, after which they will hop in the Teslas and head up to pad 39A, which you see there on your screen. As a reminder, this is SpaceX's 10th mission flying people since 2020, which is incredible to think about, and our second of 4 missions for Axiom.
Right, very exciting for us. Well, speaking of milestones and special moments, I wanted to take a moment to highlight a tradition we started at Axiom Space when the AX-1 crew went on their mission and has continued with this crew. A few weeks ago, just before the crew headed to quarantine, we held our Stepping into Space ceremony. Teams across the Axiom family gathered at our Axiom engineering facility and joined with the AX-2 crew to celebrate not just the ending of their training, but also that important pivot to what we call the operational stage of their mission. Here is a quick recap of that moment.
We're about to launch to the International Space Station for this incredible mission. This is a delineation. Everything before was training and preparation, and now we're in operation.
AX-2 represents a major step for us. Our last mission was 3 individuals who flew and did remarkable research on orbit. Now we have a combination of individual and a country that's going to fly with us. I mean, this is what we're all about. This is the global outreach that this company has. We're making history. Here they are, the AX-2 crew.
Wow, we are really, really excited to be here today. I think it's so important that you're here because without you and all your contributions, all your hard work, your dedication, we wouldn't be up here ready for spaceflight, and we are.
To continue to celebrate this moment, one of the things that we did a scan of the right foot of each of these astronauts, an homage to the Apollo program and the images that you see from the first launch of the moon. And there is a plaque.
This is only the first class of Saudi astronauts back home, so we're just looking for more to join.
That little voice inside you is real. Listen to it.
My father used to share with me a part of a poet he likes. It says, "He who fears to climb mountains will forever live among pits." I would say to everyone, just find your mountain, keep climbing. It's not going to be an easy ride. You might stumble and fall, but always have the passion and the thought of what it's going to feel like once you are on top of the mountain and looking down. I'm sure it's going to be an amazing view and experience.
Live outside your comfort zone. You're capable of so much more than you might believe. So try things that you think you might not succeed at because you'll find out that you really are much more capable.
One more round of applause for our crew for the AX-2 mission. Woo! Go AX-2!
What an amazing tradition that you guys have started. I love that.
It's so great to see that Axiom family specifically come together and support this crew, get their big final send-off for all of that preparation they've been doing.
Now, we are just moments away from seeing the crew for the first time today. This is a live view outside of our Falcon support building located...
Core on countdown, suit donning and checkouts are complete. Stand by for walkout. We're on schedule.
All right. Almost perfectly on cue there. That was the SpaceX core calling out on our countdown nets to let the integrated teams know that all of our crew members are in their suits. They went through the appropriate checks and fit-ups, and we should be seeing them walk out these doors any minute now.
I love the serendipity of that moment. That's going to be the rest of the day, right? Everything's right on cue.
Yeah, I like it.
This is certainly a big moment for them. That moment at Axiom where we have this stepping to space send-off is a big one, going from that training to operational phase, but this might be the next big one, the next big step for their mission.
Now, we have seen the crew in their suits, in the days leading up to launch. We had a dress rehearsal a couple days ago. I guess that was Friday. And so we've seen the crew walk through and rehearse all of this, but this will be the first time that we're seeing them on the day they get to go to space.
I have to imagine it feels completely different. But I also think maybe their training has made this sort of normal. They're in the mode, they have the muscle memory at this point. Something's familiar, but some things have to also be a little heightened today.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Now there we can see the 3 Teslas that will take them up a short distance. It's a little bit less than a half mile from those doors to the elevator doors at the base of pad 39A. We will see Commander Peggy Whitson and pilot John Schaffner together in one of those black Teslas, while the mission specialist Ali Al-Karni and Rayana Barnawi will be partnered in another. So, like we said, it's a short drive. They could walk it, but I've done that walk. It's not great, especially, it's pretty warm in Florida already and a little humid. So we want to keep everybody cool and comfortable. So they're going to hop in these vehicles and head up.
Launch director and countdown net. The crew is beginning their walkout to drive to the pad at this time.
It sounds like we should be seeing our AX2 crew any moment now, coming through those double doors that you see on your screen.
Now, because we here in this location, we are inside the blast area, so no family or media are allowed here, but certainly an emotionally significant moment, and we're...
Aha! And here they are, our AX2 crew. This is very exciting. This is our first live look at the AX2 crew suited up for their mission to the International Space Station. On your far left, you see Rayana Barnawi, followed by Peggy Whitson, then John Schaffner, then Ali Al-Karni. Wow, incredible. We've got a great group wave there. The team unifying for their first big step before they get in those Teslas to ride to their vehicle.
I love this view that we have here inside the vehicles. We actually get to really get an up-close look at the excitement on their faces. Right now, they are, of course, going to buckle in, and they're also going to plug in the umbilicals, the umbilicals that flow cool nitrox, nitrogen-oxygen mixture air into the suit. So it helps keep them comfortable as they are making that short distance up to the pad.
Right, because as you said, they are in Florida. It can be a little warm and a little humid there. So any way to make this crew comfortable is going to be better. It's going to help them be in the right mindset and appreciate this moment. You see those gull-wing doors are closing now. I do love this camera view. It reminds me of like auto karaoke or taxi karaoke, whatever that was. And that reminds me, they do have a special playlist that I think they're playing right now for their short drive. Don't think we'll get to hear.
It looks like fist bumps and maybe some dancing to the music as well.
Yeah.
That's our Commander Peggy Whitson on the far left and pilot John Schaffner there to her left, our right center, I guess you could say. And then mission specialists Ali Al-Karni and Rayana Barnawi on the right-hand side.
What a great moment there where you saw each pair of crew members sort of grasping hands, doing fist bumps, so kind of having another level of realization for this step in their mission. It's so wonderful to see that. Love to see the teamwork too. Very special moment for Peggy, but thinking about her, she actually had her first mission to space on STS-11, which launched from this very pad 39A on June 5th, 2002, just shy of 21 years ago. She would have been transported out on this very stretch of road and ridden the same set of elevators to reach the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Now today, just everything else is basically new. The suits, the rocket, obviously, all of those things are new, but it's pretty fascinating to think of this throwback. And actually, here's a photo of then rookie astronaut Peggy Whitson.
Wow. I love that.
That's incredible. There she is in the White Room. And actually, as this crew rides out to their rocket, their commander, Peggy Whitson, wanted to share a special message with them and to each of you who have helped make today possible.
As I get ready for spaceflight, I want to say thank you to everyone who's contributed. I know there's so many of you out there that are helping to make each and every piece come together. The engineers that design things, the welders that put things together, the instructors that teach me how to operate this really very complex piece of hardware and how it's all integrated together by all the software engineers. And then we have a ground team that's helping us. And we have ground teams all over the world that are helping us be successful on our missions. And every one of you does a tremendous job to make spaceflight possible. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
What a fantastic message from Peggy Whitson, from STS 111 to AX2. What a career, what a phenomenal set of achievements.
You know, I remember the day, excuse me, that Axium announced that she would be commanding this mission, and it was such an incredible moment because she really is one of the legends of NASA, and I was just so excited to see that she was going to be flying in a SpaceX Dragon. So what an exciting opportunity.
Absolutely.
Once again, those live views coming to us from inside the Teslas as the crew members of AX2 are pulling up to their rocket. They're now getting closer and closer to Pad 39A, where Falcon 9 and our Dragon Freedom capsule await to take them to the International Space Station. Now, fun fact about the pad here, those elevator doors, excuse me, that we see here at the base of the fixed service structure, the core of this structure is original to the pad from the shuttle and Apollo days. So it is safe to say that when Peggy ascends one of these elevators, that in her shuttle days, she was using the same, the core.
Crew have arrived at the pad.
There's that call out, just letting everybody know on countdown that the crew has arrived to the pad, as we can see.
We have Peggy Whitson and John Schaffner. They've exited their vehicles first.
This is one of my favorite moments that we have during the launch sequences. Right there it is.
Lean back.
The lean back, and they have to. The vehicle stands so tall there on top of the launch mount.
We'll probably say this throughout the broadcast, but they've seen the rocket before. They've been in it for dry drafts. It's got to look different on today, this day of launch.
Another fun fact about those elevators, the levels of the fixed service structure are not marked by the level number that it is. It's the height in feet that they are ascending to. So the AX2 crew is going up to the 255-foot level, and they will ride up, and that then, after they exit, will take a short 10-foot stairs up to the next level. The difference being is basically the difference in height between the shuttle access arm and the Falcon 9 access arm. Beautiful view there of the backside of the transporter erector. That is the structure that we use for integration of the vehicle, as well as transportation of the integrated vehicle to the launch pad. And of course, we roll it up horizontally and then lift it to the vertical launch position, within, depending on the mission, days or hours prior to liftoff.
There you see Ali and Rihanna doing an excellent lean back for that view. You can see the excitement, hands clapping.
As we mentioned before, they have rehearsed this previously in our dry dress rehearsal on Friday. They suited up, they rode out to the pad, they got in the spacecraft. So they have technically done all of this once before because, in spaceflight, we love to rehearse and practice everything. And really, like the moment for them to look up and realize that these are their last steps on Earth for a few days must be such an incredible moment. The day that they actually get to go to space. It's a moment that they've all trained for a very, very long time for.
Absolutely. So exciting. You see now in your screen, that's Peggy and John. I believe they're using the phone to make their phone calls before launch, the last calls.
Now, for those of you looking at the view here and wondering what those arrows are for, those arrows point the direction towards safety in the event that the crew needs to leave the area quickly. They just look down and they're able to follow those chevrons over to the escape pods, basically. They are baskets on a zip line that allow them to leave the tower if necessary. But it's a little counterintuitive because they're walking opposite of the arrows, which of course makes sense because they're going to space, not away.
Rihanna and Ali have gotten to the top of the stairs, and they will have their turn to use the phone for their last calls.
That's a pretty cool view there. We see them, they're just in the fixed service structure tower, not yet going across the crew access arm. That access arm, of course, is what connects the tower to the launch vehicle. We should be able to get a really great view of them as they go down the access arm, but looks like everybody's enjoying the view, as they should be.
Yeah.
And as they await their opportunity to make their final phone call.
Speaking of paths, this is the last section of their path before they ingress the vehicle, but Ali and Rayan actually reported last August to Houston to start training, and this crew has 700 to 1,000 hours of training total by the time they start their operational phase of the mission. It's no easy task.
Now, the folks that are dressed in the all-black bodysuits, those are members of the SpaceX suit and closeout team. So these are the SpaceX employees that will be assisting the crew through their egress and suit leak checks. For FOD, which is foreign object debris, something that we want to avoid at all costs in the spaceflight industry. We make sure that everyone, all the the personnel in this part of the phase are preventing FOD, and that is why we see them dressed in those bunny suits like we do.
Coming down the arm now, you see here's Commander Peggy Whitson and pilot John Schaffner taking a nice look at their rocket through the window there.
Smiles.
Yeah.
It's incredible, to see someone like Peggy that has been to space so much, one of the most decorated NASA astronauts ever, to still be so excited. It's really heartwarming. We see here now that Peggy Whitson and John Schaffner have now arrived to the White Room. This is a great shot of where they will get to actually, right on the wall, they're going to add their signature to our basically wall of fame.
Everyone, crew at the White Room.
Everyone that flies on a Dragon mission has the opportunity to add their signature. We can see them adding their signature there to the black SpaceX logo, joining the names of the Axiom 1 crew as well as the Inspiration 4 crew.
As I understand, that Sharpie is part of the protocol. You have to have that Sharpie at the ready because it's a really special moment for the crew.
Absolutely. We can see the crew members, the closeout members that are assisting the crew with their ingress process. We can see that they're holding tablets. That is where they are tracking and following along with our electronic procedures, which we call EPROCs. And those EPROCs list out every single step that each person has to carry out in order to enable a successful liftoff. And of course, we have an instantaneous liftoff window today as we are going to the International Space Station. So it's really important to keep tabs on who's doing what and how much time we have left in each activity. We do build in margin into the schedule so that if one thing takes a couple minutes longer, it's okay. We build in a little bit of flexibility there. But those tablets allow the crew to follow along. And one of those steps in the EPROCs for the advanced team, which is the team of SpaceX employees that arrive there to the pad in advance of the crew to prepare for crew arrival, one of those things is to make sure that there is a Sharpie in the White Room. We can see there one of the SpaceX closeout crew team members assisting.
Core on countdown, ingress started.
We want to make sure that nobody bumps the helmet or the side hatch as they enter the vehicle. We can now see pilot John Schaffner in the seat on the left and Commander Peggy Whitson in the seat on the right. The seats that they're sitting in utilize a 5-point safety harness, so it's a little bit more advanced than the seatbelt that we have in our automobiles here on Earth.
We have John and Peggy in the vehicle. Fun little note about John Schaffner. He's going to be the first Alaskan to fly to space. He was born in Fairbanks, Alaska. I've spent a lot of time there from my biology background, and it's an extreme environment. So just being from Alaska, I feel like is training enough to prepare for space.
Alaska is cold, space is cold.
Yeah, there you
they
go.
go together. We can see there our mission specialists, Rayana Barnawi and Ali Al-Karni, still finishing up the final steps before walking down the crew access arm. They are working with the SpaceX closeout team members to do the final checks, and of course some waves, now entering that crew access arm and making their way down to Dragon Freedom.
Smiles and waves. All right, thumbs up from the KSA mission specialists, Rayana Barnawi and Ali Al-Karni, as they enter the white room and likely go straight to signing that SpaceX logo next to the AX-1 crew and joining their crewmate signatures. It's really incredible for this new era of space travel to be forming, where we're going to have sovereign nation representation on that signature wall. It's just really exciting to see the evolution and change of things here as we grow commercial spaceflight.
Absolutely. Space for all.
Yeah. You mentioned this closeout crew. It's really, as Peggy said in that send-off video too, it's really phenomenal to think about the size of these teams and every pair of hands that gets put on these mission preparations and to make this crew perform their mission successfully. It's incredible to think about all of those people involved. It's as though they're not traveling just for themselves or even their countries, but like you said, it's space for all. They're traveling for all of humanity.
Once again, we can see the tablets being utilized for the closeout team members to follow along with the procedures step by step. They're also marking off when a step is completed and essentially just keeping track of what is remaining, what open work remains. We can see here they're going through and doing the final zip-ups of the gloves. You know, for comfort reasons, excuse me, for comfort reasons, we don't make them do final suit up, I should say final suit up with all the zippers and whatnot, so that they can still be comfortable as they're riding up and making their phone calls. And this is the final check to ensure that everything is locked in place with those zippers and fasteners. We can see now that pilot John Schaffner on the left and Commander Peggy Whitson on the right are in their seats, getting those final strap in with that seatbelt. We can see that they have tablets on their legs, which allow them to also follow along with the same procedures step by step.
And there goes Ali Al-Karni ingressing the vehicle with some words of encouragement from his crewmate, Rayana Barnawi, and as she initiates her ingress.
So as they're stepping through this side hatch, it's important to note that they won't go through this side hatch again until they're back on Earth. When they are ingressing and egressing the International Space Station, we actually use the forward hatch located at the top of the Dragon spacecraft to dock with the International Space Station. So the next time that they go through this side hatch will be when they are done and they are on a recovery vessel in either the Gulf or Atlantic Ocean.
Okay, we're getting our first looks of our full crew seated inside the Dragon. On the far left, you have Rayana Barnawi, followed by John Schaffner, Peggy Whitson, and Ali Al-Karni. Mission specialists sitting on the far left and the far right. pilot John Schaffner on the left in the middle, and Peggy Whitson, commander, on that right middle seat. Great side-by-side shot of the rocket Dragon capsule on the left, crew on the right.
We can see there, in addition to the tablets that the crew uses to follow along with everything that's going on, they also, I just love this view. This is coming to us from our drone that is circling pad 39A. You can really appreciate, one, what a beautiful day to go to space. I love it whenever we can see this coastline come into view. But yeah, just a beautiful pad shot of 39A. Of course, this is where many of the shuttle missions launched from, but this is also the Apollo 11 launch site as well. So it's amazing to see this new era of spaceflight continuing from a site that is so historic and carries a lot of good memories for many people. As you mentioned before, Peggy Whitson having flown from this pad herself on a shuttle mission. So I just think that's so amazing that we're able to continue spaceflight from such an important piece of ground.
Absolutely. And in thinking about all of the science that's going to be performed on this AX2 mission, it made me look at the calendar and actually see that Space Lab was launched from this same pad 50 years ago to this year, so 1973. And that was, of course, a huge progressive step in doing scientific research in space. And so we have this really cool full circle moment where we're initiating a big step in commercial spaceflight that's really going to progress the research that's done in low Earth orbit, tying it back to the same pad where Peggy launched, and even before that where Skylab, one of our influential science components of space exploration, was launched from as well. Really cool history, like you're saying.
This here an exterior view of the Crew Access Arm and Dragon Freedom. Well, today we are carrying 4 people to the space station. Dragon can actually seat up to 7. The additional 3 crew members would be located basically under where the 4 seats that we use as we see today in lieu of cargo. So underneath the astronauts, as we see now, there is actually cargo located underneath them. Within that cargo will be things that they use like food and water, as well as the clothes that they will get to change into once they are able to take off or doff their spacesuits. Once they reach orbit, they'll be able to take off the spacesuits and change into other clothes and basically sleep in that while they make their way to the International Space Station. And we can see here the tablets that they follow along with the procedures on the left leg, but on the right leg, we see another rectangular shape. That is the connection point for the umbilical, and that is where the basically the interface is for flowing, again, some more of that cooled nitrox, which is a nitrogen-oxygen mixture. That air gets flowed into the suits to help keep them comfortable. It's the same stuff that scuba divers use in their breathing tanks. The umbilical is also what connects the electrical and communication and avionics. So that's how we basically get telemetry to and from the suit, and in addition to those communication packages. Now, the seats that they are sitting in are custom sized for each astronaut. So if you think of the human body, and some people might have longer legs and shorter torsos, and vice versa, where they might have longer torsos and shorter legs. Thought we were going to get some communications there. Sounds like we had some in-capsule audio, so that's good to hear starting to come through. But yeah, all the length of the seat that they are sitting in, as well as the length of the footrest and the length of the armrest, are all sized appropriately for each astronaut. So really helps to make sure that they stay comfortable as well as safe through all phases of the mission. Their spacesuits are also custom sized. And they actually come here to Hawthorne not only for hours and hours of training on procedures and operations, but they also come on site here to try on the suits and make sure that everything is fitting well, make sure that as they go through, the motions of executing, something while they're on orbit, making sure that everything is super comfortable and nothing is rubbing in the wrong places.
Since the beginning of the space race in the 1960s, a custom patch has been used to represent and identify individual missions and their crew. It is also a long-held custom that the crew influence or outright design their own patch, injecting it with symbolism and personal elements to commemorate their journey. This crew has continued this long-standing tradition with their official AX2 mission patch. Take a look. The AX2 mission patch highlights the beauty of space, hope for the future, and the important role of the ISS to unite the best aspects of humanity. Shown prominently are the mission name, AX2, the family names of the crew members, and the flags of the United States and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the two nations represented on board today's flight. There are 5 shapes drawn as constellations, and these represent the crew's intention to focus on inspiration, education, and teaching through STEAM education initiatives. And so there's a constellation for science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. The arched path leading from the Earth to space is colored lavender, which is a culture significant in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, symbolizing hospitality. That arched path and color also reflect KSA's desire to be part of the space sector and position itself as a contributor to the global space community. Then, naturally, the space station is central to the image as the destination of this crew, while Earth is featured with prominent horizon lines symbolizing optimism, hope, and inspiration. Just as you see this mission patch worn by the crew on their flight suits, this patch is currently adorning the walls of Axium Space's Mission Control in Houston and is placed in a position of honor everywhere this crew is being supported for the duration of their mission.
We can see live views there inside of Dragon Freedom. Now, this capsule that they are flying in is a reused capsule. It has been to space before. Additionally, Falcon 9 is also a reusable vehicle. It's the world's first orbital class reusable rocket. And while today marks the first flight for this rocket, it will be the second flight for the Dragon spacecraft. Reusability is a big deal, not just for us at SpaceX, but also for the future of spaceflight. Reusing hardware, similar to how airlines reuse aircraft, allows us to refly the most expensive parts of the rocket, which, of course, in turn drives down the cost of space access. Imagine if you had to fly on a brand new airplane every time you took a flight. Most people would not be able to afford that plane ticket. In the same way, a fully and rapidly reusable launch system is the key to becoming a multiplanetary species. To date, SpaceX has completed 39 Dragon missions, including 36 visits to the International Space Station, and 18 of those 36 missions have actually been on reflown Dragons, which is pretty awesome. As you've heard me mention before, the Dragon capsule flying today, named Freedom, will be making its second trip to space. It previously supported the NASA Crew 4 mission in April 2022, so just over a year ago. Now, as for our launch vehicle, the Falcon 9 rocket has completed 224 total launches, and 70% of those have been on reflown rockets. The booster supporting today's mission will be lifting off for the first time, as you might be able to tell by the fact that that first stage is shiny and white. The way that I often tell people is, if the paint matches the second stage, it's a new rocket. Now, speaking of firsts, today marks the first time that we're landing Falcon 9 back on land for a crew mission. Previous crew missions landed on a drone ship out in the Atlantic Ocean. So we actually see a live view now of LZ-1. That is the intended landing destination for the booster today. Landing back on land has a lot of benefits. It eliminates the need for our recovery team to be stationed out at sea for days and improves our turnaround time to get Falcon 9 ready to fly again. So I also personally love the land landings because the Space Coast can actually see and hear the booster return to LZ-1. So super exciting.
It's just under 2 hours, 36 minutes to the launch of Axiom 2. As you've seen, the 4-person crew is in the Dragon spacecraft. We're preparing for the first of a series of communication checks. These checks will be with the SpaceX core, and they verify the crew connections in Dragon through an umbilical that remains hooked up to the capsule until liftoff. As I said, the comm checks are going to be with core. That's a member of the Dragon ops team, and that operations team is located here in the Mission Control Center at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. The Falcon 9 and Dragon launch teams are located in Firing Room 4 at Kennedy Space Center. Now, next activities for the crew, once we get through that initial set of comm checks, we're going to be watching the seat rotation into the launch position. We've also got a suit leak check for several minutes, make sure everything is buttoned up and tight. And then we also have additional communications checks. These will be through RF antennas and NASA's Tracking and Data Relay System, or you may hear it referred to as TDRS for short, and those will be comm checks with the Dragon team. Now, currently, the flight hardware Falcon 9 and Dragon launch teams continue to monitor the vehicles. We're not working any significant issues at this time. We are continuing to just watch the weather. It's Florida, it's late afternoon. Ground level continues to look good, winds are low, and we've got nice looking skies there on the camera view on the left. We are watching upper altitude winds in case some of the anvil clouds do drift over the launch site or the ascent trajectory in the last hour. Now, for upper altitude winds, SpaceX uses a Doppler radar to study wind direction and speed. And that allows the SpaceX structures and control engineers to calculate loads on the vehicle and verify that we're good to fly. The Space Force Range releases balloons for us, and that gets low altitude wind data. That supports Dragon's contingency launch commit criteria. But right now, T-minus 2 hours and 34 minutes. Everything continues to look good. Next up, we're waiting for comm checks. We see the crew right there. Make sure that their connections through the seats, through the umbilical are good. They'll talk to the core, and then we'll take it from there with the remaining series of checkouts of comms, seat rotation, and the suit leak checks. A minute ago, we saw that live view of landing zone 1. There's the crew. Waves all around. The SpaceX support team is backing out of the capsule right now as we get ready for comm checks. Bigger thing is we'll then go into seat rotation, so we want to make sure everybody's out of the way, clear the seats, make sure everything underneath the seats are all stowed for flight and ready to go. We talked about landing zone 1, showed you a live view a few minutes ago. We're hoping to get a nice view of the first stage when it comes back to Earth. About 8.5 minutes after launch, we ought to see that coming back down into that landing zone 1 view. Right now, just waiting for the word from the crew that they're ready to begin their communications checks. Coming up on 2 hours, 32 minutes till launch. On the Falcon 9 side currently, the chief engineer is mostly just going around the room, checking with the SpaceX Falcon engineers. They're continuing to top off gas pressure in the helium supply that's used to repressurize first and second stages as we head to space. The attitude control system, gas supplies, the landing leg supplies. We're at pressure. We just top it off a little bit as we continue through the countdown. Other than that, nothing significant on the Falcon 9 right now. Everybody's mostly just looking over the data, watching their systems. Our next major activity on Falcon 9 will actually occur at about T-minus 1 hour and 10 minutes. That's when we're going to begin to bleed in the fuel into the Merlin engine chambers, actually into the jacket where it's used to cool the nozzles as we head out into space. So that'll be our next major activity. We have also done flight termination system checkouts a couple hours ago. Everything looks good there. And the view you can see right now at 39A, Falcon 9, fairly quiet at the moment. Dragon also having the more activity as the crew has ingressed. And right now we're getting ready to begin checks between Dragon and the ground.
We're now T-minus 2 hours, 30 minutes, and 42 seconds until liftoff of Axiom 2. Heading to the International Space Station, we have a T0 time of 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:37 p.m. Pacific Time. As John mentioned, and as you can see on screen, weather's cooperating at the moment. We can see the exterior of the capsule there. This is actually a great shot because not only can you see the service section, which is where the crew is, you can also see another great view of the trunk. This is where we are able to put unpressurized unpressurized cargo, and that trunk is the part that will be jettisoned before the crew actually return to Earth. Great view coming to us from our helicopter circling the pad. You can also see below the trunk the white second stage, below that the black inner stage where we have the grid fins attached, and then below that the white first stage. We are standing by for communications checks with the crew. So it will be a series of checks to ensure that all seats are able to communicate with the teams, both at the Launch Control Center in Florida, as well as here in Mission Control in Hawthorne, California. After we get through comm checks, we will perform leak checks on the suits. That's important, just to ensure that all of those zippers on the suits and the fasteners are all in the in their final position, they're closed, and we pressurize the suit in order to basically test that it can hold that pressure over a period of time. In the event of an egress scenario, or excuse me, not egress, of a launch escape scenario after liftoff, the spacesuit actually functions as a mini spaceship within the spaceship. It's able to hold that pressure while the crew return to Earth. Once those suit leak checks are complete, the closeout team will then close the side hatch. As I mentioned before, the side hatch is the door that they use to go in and out of the capsule while they are on Earth. The hatch that they use while they are on station is actually the forward hatch, which is located under the nose cone, which you can distinguish there at the very top of the Dragon capsule, the pointy part that has that diagonal line that indicates where the nose cone is, and that will rotate back. It'll open up and expose the forward hatch, and that's what the Dragon capsule uses to autonomously dock with the International Space Station. So once that side hatch is closed by the closeout team here on the ground,
SpaceX Dragon, comm check from seat 2.
Loud and clear, Peggy, from SpaceX. How me?
We have you loud and clear.
So it sounds like these comm checks.
All right, good afternoon. Please let us know when you get to step 1.3 and are ready for umbilical comm checks.
Wilco. And SpaceX Dragon, we're at step 1.3, ready for a comm check.
SpaceX copies. Stand by for umbilical comm checks.
Wilco.
Great view of the Axiom 2 crew there as we are standing by for those comm checks.
Commander, pilot, MS1, MS2, comm check.
Commander has you loud and clear.
Pilot, loud and clear. MS1, loud and clear. MS2, loud and clear.
And core, loud and clear. Umbilical comm check complete. Please report when ready for seat rotation.
All right, all good news there. All those comm checks checked out, and we are now...
SpaceX Dragon, we are ready for seat rotation.
SpaceX copies. Will report when initiating.
As the name indicates, these seats are going to rotate back into the launch position. This will enable the crew to have easier access to those crew displays located above their heads.
Dragon SpaceX initiating seat rotation.
Dragon copies.
We can see those seats now rotating back into the launch position.
On the left.
This moment must feel like that moment on a roller coaster when you're in position to go.
We are at T-minus
Dragon
2 hours.
SpaceX, seats are in the launch position.
Dragon copies.
Okay, a comm there confirming that the seat rotation has been completed. We are at T-minus 2 hours and 22 minutes and 6 seconds from liftoff of the AX-2 mission from Kennedy Space Center in Florida, carrying 4 Axiom astronauts, Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, Ali Al-Karni, and Rihanna Barnawi, aboard the Crew Dragon spacecraft. It's been a very exciting day so far. The crew shifted their sleep cycle to match that of the International Space Station and are currently inside Dragon going through their pre-launch checklists.
As of now, the astronauts have already completed their comms checks. That helps to make sure that they can communicate with the teams on the ground. Their seats have rotated from upright to their reclined launch position, which allows them to see and access the display panels there above their head. Up next will be the leak checks to make sure their spacesuits are in proper working condition before liftoff and to do final inspection of the spacecraft. So at this point in time, we're going to stand by, await for those suit checks. We expect them to happen here in the next couple of minutes. After those are complete, the closeout team will be closing the side hatch for flight. That's one of the key...
Dragon SpaceX, you are go for Section 2 suit leak check preparation.
Copy, go Section 2, suit leak check preparation.
Once the suit leak checks are complete and the closeout team closes the side hatch for flight, things will start moving a lot quicker. The opportunity for going back and rechecking, everything is still, we're able to do that before the side hatch closes. So that's why we wait to get through the comm checks, the suit leak checks, the seat rotation. We wait to close the side hatch until all of those are complete, so that in the event that, for example, if a zipper isn't quite in place, one of the closeout team members can re-enter the capsule, help the crew member get that into place and re-perform the suit leak check, or whatever it might be. Now, after we get that side hatch closed, the closeout team will depart the pad, and then around T-minus 1 hour and 30 minutes, we'll do launch escape system checks. And then we fast forward to T-minus 42 minutes, and things really start happening in rapid succession.
SpaceX Dragon, tear is complete. We're ready for leak check.
Dragon copies and concurs. You are go for Section 3 suit leak check.
Copy. Go for Section 3 suit leak check.
All right, so that communication back and forth there between Commander Peggy Whitson and SpaceX Core, or Crew Operations and Resource Engineer. On that console today is Arthur Berrialt. That is the primary voice that we will be hearing communicating to the crew members. That back and forth just confirming that the crew is ready to go to march into that next step, which, as they said, would be the suit leak checks. Essentially, we inflate the suits to a certain pressure for a couple of minutes, and we monitor that pressure level during that time to basically ensure and check that we're not losing any pressure. If we see a pressure loss, that's an indication that something isn't quite fitting right. Maybe there's a little bit of FOD in the visor, so it's not closing completely, or the zipper might not be zipped up completely. So one of the closeout team members will go in and help resolve whatever is causing that, and then they, in that case, would re-perform the suit leak check. But when we did a dress rehearsal on Friday, we got to this step, and they breezed right through it.
Yeah.
So. You can actually kind of see the crew there just resting pretty comfortably while these leak checks are underway. So suit leak checks are now underway. We're just holding that pressure and monitoring that pressure level in all 4 suits to ensure that there's no leakage. For those of you that have just recently joined us, we have Mission Specialist Rayana Barnawi on the left, the far left seat. That is seat number 4. And seat number 3 is pilot John Schaffner. Next to him, Commander Peggy Whitson. And then on the far right, in seat number 1, Ali Al-Karni. We can see the SpaceX closeout team there preparing for the side hatch closure, but like I said, we won't complete that until we have confirmation of 4 good suit leak checks. Now, the area that we see here, the white room, is environmentally controlled. That helps to ensure that Florida insects, humidity, none of that gets into the capsule. That we're able to maintain a clean environment.
You could see them inspecting with the light. You really want to go over that with a fine-tooth comb.
Dragon, we see 4 good suits.
SpaceX copies and concurs. 4 good suits. At this time, closeout team will perform final steps in preparation for side hatch closure. Proceed to section 4, side hatch close, and report when ready to close hatch.
Wilco for Dragon.
All right, good news there. We have 4 good suit leak checks. Closeout team now preparing to close the side hatch. Duke, as you mentioned, yeah, they are really inspecting that side hatch to ensure that we get a good seal there. Very similar to the suit leak checks that we just performed, we will do a leak check on that side hatch where we inflate the seal around the hatch. Again, to a certain pressure for a certain amount of time. We monitor that pressure for any decay or pressure loss. And
SpaceX Dragon, we are ready for the closeout team to close the hatch.
SpaceX copies.
I think that's a very polite way of saying it's time for them to go so we can go to space. As I mentioned before, the primary voice that we hear communicating with the crew is the SpaceX Core, which stands for Crew Operations Resource Engineer. That person on console, while it's not the same individual through all phases of flight, but that seat is there and it is filled by different individuals throughout the mission. And that is the primary communication to the crew. That person is responsible for updating them on statuses and confirming with the crew that they are ready to proceed to the next step, as we've been hearing them that back and forth this morning. Or I should say this afternoon now at this point. Once we get the side hatch closed, we can see that there's still a closeout team member there under their feet, kind of in that cargo location. It's kind of hard to visualize, but if you want to compare it between the view on the left and the view on that right, on the right-hand side, that closeout team member.
Dragon SpaceX, comm check over ground stations.
Dragon has you loud and clear over ground station.
Core loud and clear. Ground station comm check complete. Stand by for TDRS comm check.
Should be just a few minutes from side hatch closing, but until then we still have a good view of the crew in the capsule with one of the closeout crew members in the lower part of the screen there. You see them working on their tablets that the crew has. They each have one. Nice view of the Dragon capsule on your left and some great weather out there.
We can see that final closeout crew member making the last preparations and now popping out. So they have now egressed and are back in that white room. As I was saying before, it's kind of hard to visualize if you've never been inside the Dragon capsule, you know, kind of the orientation of where the viewpoint is to the right. Imagine that the crew tablet that we see Peggy and John referencing and working off of is kind of around where those 2 dots are on the left-hand side of your screen, those 2 dots on the exterior of the Dragon capsule. You can kind of imagine if you were to draw a line between those 2 dots, that's roughly where the crew display panels are. And then the crew are essentially laying on their backs, or kind of on their backs, not completely, but they're laying on their backs underneath that. So when we saw that closeout team member there under their feet, If you imagine somebody kind of working in the area.
Dragon, SpaceX, comm check over TDRS.
Dragon has you loud and clear over TDRS.
Core, loud and clear. TDRS comm check complete. Stand by for comm checks with DC, MD, and LD in the launch configuration.
Standing by.
Dragon, this is DC on countdown 1. Comm check.
DC, we have you loud and clear.
DC, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with MD.
Dragon, MD on countdown 1. Comm check.
MD, we have you loud and clear on countdown 1.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, MD on Dragon to ground. Comm check.
MD on Dragon to ground, we have you loud and clear.
MD, loud and clear. Stand by for comm checks with LD.
Dragon, LD on countdown 1. Comm check.
We have you loud and clear on countdown 1, LD.
LD is you loud and clear as well. Stand by for my comm check over Dragon to ground. Dragon, LD, Dragon to ground 1. Comm check.
We have you loud and clear, LD.
LD also has you loud and clear.
Dragon, SpaceX, launch configuration, comm checks complete.
Dragon copies.
All right, so we're finishing up with those comm checks. And I want to point out for those that might be tuning in for the first time or might not be familiar with the structure of those comm checks, that they are actually important. They do mean something. So when we hear, for example, we heard Dragon MD on countdown 1. That is a structure basically saying, hey, who they are calling. So the mission director or MD was hailing the Dragon capsule. So they say Dragon, MD, then to identify who is hailing them. And then on the countdown net in which they are, and then the communication net, the loop that they are speaking from. And that's important whenever you have multiple loops and you want to know who's talking where. So in that instance, we heard, the mission director, who for today is Ken Gamerick, SpaceX mission director, basically, continuing with those communication checks. And once we have all of those wrapped up, we will be able to continue on, and that the next step would basically be to perform, close the side hatch and perform that leak check that we were talking about a little bit ago. Yeah, we can see those closeout team members there as they are standing by for the go to close the side hatch. As we saw earlier, they were inspecting the side hatch very carefully for any foreign object debris, which in the aerospace world is known as FOD, F-O-D. And we can see them there just doing their final team checks. You can see the crew there on the right-hand side of your screen following along with the procedures. They do not have games on their tablets, so that's a question I sometimes get. The tablets, as well as the crew display above John and Peggy's head, allows the crew to stay informed on what is currently happening as well as what will be upcoming. So as we said before, we should be wrapping up those communication checks, and then we will get the go to proceed with side hatch closure. And the other thing that we heard during those comm checks was somebody saying loud and clear. That is also an important structure to responding. You could have communication that is loud but garbled. Alternatively, you could have communication that is soft but clear and or crisp in the ear, and we want everybody to be able to hear it. So that's why you hear them say loud and clear, because that's basically confirming the volume as well as the crispness of the audio that is being received. Now, in the event that something was not loud and clear, we would be able to tweak it, perhaps the volume levels on the ground side and how they're being fed into the astronauts' ears, as they do have basically custom fit earbuds in their ears for those communication purposes. Some claps and waves. I have a feeling the closeout team is saying goodbye to the crew.
Yep.
Dragon SpaceX. Closeout team is taking final steps in preparation for side hatch closure. Stand by for transition to pad hatch closed. Ensure all items are secure from now through launch.
Copy. Closeout teams performing the final actions. We have secured all items prior to launch, and we're ready for the flight computer transition.
So great news there, as we suspected, the closeout team saying farewell and fair wishes to the Axiom 2 crew. They're now getting ready to close the side hatch. Once again, this room is environmentally controlled, so it helps keep out humidity, insects, which would be considered FOD, and ultimately just help keep that environment clean. We're now progressing with the side hatch closure. They're going to torque it shut. They will now attach equipment that will allow them to inflate the seal to pressurize, pressurize the seal around the side hatch. And as we mentioned before, very similar to the suit leak checks that are performed, that the seal will be inflated to a pressure that will be monitored over a few minutes, and basically monitoring to ensure that there is no loss of pressure, or also known as pressure decay. And if we did see a loss in pressure during this leak check, it would be an indication that
Dragon SpaceX closeout team has secured the side hatch and has started the side hatch leak check per 4.3.
Dragon copies. We'll follow along.
So if we were to see a pressure loss during this leak check, it would be an indication that something with the seal isn't sitting quite right, in which case the closeout team would be able to reopen the hatch, wipe it down, inspect it. Of course, whenever we are helping the crew, or rather the reason that we help the reason we help the crew get into or ingress the capsule is not only to help make sure that they don't injure themselves or they don't injure their suit, it's also to ensure that they don't accidentally bump that side hatch during that ingress process. We want to make sure that that everything is able to really keep that seal. For that reason, we actually put protective fixturing that is removed right before the side hatch closure. We put that protective fixture there to help ensure that that side hatch is covered during ingress. So the leak check is now underway. As I said before, we're going to hold this pressure for a couple of minutes and just monitor it for any pressure loss. For those of you that have just recently joined, we are now just under 2 hours until liftoff of Axiom 2. It will be heading to the International Space Station. We have a targeted T0 time of 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:37 p.m. Pacific. Weather continues to look really, really great. Almost picture perfect, I would say. Over the last 24 hours, we did see an improvement in our weather conditions, so something called the POV, or percentage of violation, which is basically our chances of violating one of the weather rules that exist and we have to follow for that liftoff time, and that percentage decreased to only 25%. So everything's still continuing to look good in terms of an on time, that liftoff targeting 5:37 p.m. Eastern. So we are now undergoing the leak check of the side hatch. This side hatch will remain closed until the crew splashes down in 10 days from now, weather dependent. We can see there inside the white room as the closeout team is performing that leak check. This is such a great view because we saw the astronauts add their signatures to the wall there earlier right before they got into the Crew Dragon. This was a tradition that SpaceX started with the Demo 2 mission. NASA astronauts Bob Behnken and Doug Hurley were the first to add their signatures to the white room wall. And of course, the Axiom 2 crew got to add their signatures along with the Axiom 1 signatures and Inspiration 4 there along the X that we see on the right-hand side.
It's great to think about the representation in all of those signatures, too. You have, of course, all of those NASA astronauts in various countries that are involved in that space program, and now with that SpaceX logo and the private astronauts that are going up, and now the sovereign nation companies or sovereign nations that will be joining for private launches like today with Axiom. It's really cool to see that diversity and that breadth of representation.
Absolutely. As I mentioned before, we are operating to a countdown today. That countdown helps ensure that all the teams are tracking to the same milestones for that T0 time. We are running with plenty of margin at this point in time. We are now awaiting the results of the side hatch leak check. Of course, we build margin into the timeline to allow us to reperform steps that might need to be done. So at this point in time, we've just been flying through all the milestones. So we are tracking with great margin at this point.
Okay, well, while we wait for results on that, we're going to go ahead and look at the crew a little bit more deeply. All right, the AX2 mission commander is Axiom Space Director of Human Spaceflight and retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. During the next 10 days, she'll extend her record as the American with the most amount of time spent in space. Here is a closer look at Peggy.
Tranquility Base here. The Eagle has landed. Rocket Tranquility.
I saw the first guys walk on the moon, Neil and Buzz, in 1969. I was 9 years old, and I thought, what a cool job. Of course, I was a farm kid from Iowa. How was I ever going to do that? I didn't tell anybody from the time I was 9, raising chickens and learning to fly and all that. I wasn't telling people that I wanted to become an astronaut because it sounded like an impossible dream. And it wasn't until the first females were selected and I graduated from high school, and that to me was when I decided, hey, maybe this is real. Maybe I really can be an astronaut. And it became a goal instead of just a dream.
Peggy Whitson became the first female commander of the International Space Station. She also set records in these categories: most days in space for a U.S. astronaut, and more hours spacewalking than any other woman.
She understands what human spaceflight really means when you approach it with that awe and respect and humility. It's like you're doing it justice.
The experience of just being in space is incredibly special and unique. But to me, the most important perspective is perspective. You look out the window, you see planet Earth, and it gives you this perspective of how important that we're all one. And we're building this place out in space to replicate the piece parts that we have on Earth. I'm really excited to take this crew up to the space station, number one, because they're all rookies, and this is going to be fun to just relive those first moments with them as they get into space and get to see their excitement and their expressions and joy.
AX2 means there's a 2.0 to her career, and now she gets to help a wonderful company to take that next step in its mission.
Her congeniality and her manner, extremely comforting, and it gave me the confidence that I could do this.
She is inspiring. Personally, I look up to her and I want to be like her.
I don't know. I love everything about Peggy. She's my role model.
I'm Axiom astronaut Peggy Whitson.
The pilot for AX2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. A STEAM advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast, he's been a pilot since the age of 17 and participates in extreme sports from hang gliding to base jumping to high-performance racing. Let's get to know a little bit more about John.
Why do you do these things?
Well, they're fun. They help you find your edge. You know, I would say limit, but we don't really want to find the limit. You want to find the edge, I think.
John is a human dynamo, and he is multifaceted, and they can go off in any different direction. But that's just the way he is. You know, it's over and above.
I was probably the outlier in the group. I was always striking out and the one climbing trees and on roofs and setting things on fire. I grew up near an airport. I had access to airplanes. I started flying when I was 15. Got my license shortly when I was eligible. It was just something I did. In the early 60s, actually 1963, when Jim and I began flying, it was big news. It's easy for an 8-year-old at that time to fall in love with space. That was our fun. Cardboard boxes, rolling down hills, emulating space training, Gemini pilots. So space just became part of the fabric of me, and it never left.
I'd heard about private astronaut travel before. A little bit of research pulled up Axium Space and their mission.
Well, my wife brought it to my attention. She saw the news article of Axiom flying and said, hey, you can finally go to space. And the moment I heard about this opportunity, I knew I would be on board.
He's on a mission to encourage young minds to use their imagination. And from there, he says, possibilities are endless.
I'm taking a patch for the Middlesbrough Independent School Systems. This is their middle school who last year actually decided to become a STEM certified school. What I want to do is show teachers and educators the value of listening and paying attention to what is in a student and help nurture what they see in them. It's hard to go against your nature, but if you can listen to yourself and follow that voice, then you have an obligation to nurture that. I'm John Schaffner, and I'm the pilot of AX2.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as mission specialist, Ali Al-Karni is an Air Force captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force.
We will be commencing health check for launch escape system. Expect a momentary flight computer state change, followed by a transition back to pad hatch closed.
And Dragon copies, we saw that.
Having trained at King Faisal Air Academy, as well as multiple bases in the U.S., Ali has flown as a fighter pilot for 12 years. Ali was selected as an astronaut in 2020. Here's more on Ali.
I grew up in the southwest region of Saudi Arabia, in a very small town called Sabt al-Alaya. I've always wondered about planes and how they fly. Back then in Saudi Arabia, we did not have a lot of places or flying academies you could apply to. So I have to go and find a place that could train me. That's why I applied for the Air Force Academy to be a fighter pilot. The best moment for me is once I hit the throttles in full AB and the aircraft start rolling down the runway. And as I take off, I watch my shadow and see how fast I'm going. That gives me a joy that I cannot describe. I am Ali Al-Karni, and I am Mission Specialist 1 on AX2. Being selected to be part of this mission make me privileged and honored to represent my country. I was really surprised about the results out of the announcement. People are loving it. People are super supportive of the mission. I consider myself a newly married. I've been married for 3 years now. And I've had my daughter. She's 12 months old. And I want to share with them how big it is what I'm about to do. It is an amazing opportunity to be on top of a rocket filled with fuel and gas that are gonna boost you to space. The team is amazing. We have worked so much to make sure we have a good crew coherence, and right now I can say that we do complement each other. Every single one of us has been trained to do everything regarding this mission.
I would like to thank Axium Space for enabling us to go back to space and giving us this opportunity.
I have an amazing family. They are supportive of me throughout my career, and I want them to know before I step into the rocket that I love them, and I will always be there, whether physically or mentally, with them, and I'll do whatever it takes to make them feel happy and loved.
Representing the Saudi Space Commission and also serving as mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. Here's a closer look at Rayana.
It's a historic moment for Saudi Arabia and the entire Arab world.
Saudi Arabia will be sending its first ever female astronaut into space.
I was always into exploring new things. Research was one of the things that fulfilled that feeling for me. Trying to experiment, finding a piece of the puzzle that could solve a mystery. I never thought that I will ever be going to space, but at the same time, it feels like a dream come true. It's an overwhelming feeling, of course. Home for me is a small town. My dad had a little farm. He taught us how to plant. That was one of the first experiments. That was one of the most fascinating feelings. My grandmother. To me, she is my role model. I can say that my grandma is my biggest fan, and I'm very glad that I have my grandma's support.
Saudi Arabia will be sending its first woman astronaut to the International Space Station. Rayana Barnawi, a biomedical researcher, is part of a private mission operated by Axium Space.
Rayana, she is an amazing scientist. She's done stem cell research and breast cancer research, and we are really excited to have her on board the space station doing some of the same types of things in space.
It honestly feels like I am representing all Saudi's ambition, all female and all researchers as well. It's a big honor to be able to go to space and at the same time do the things that you love the most.
It's not just that you have a nation that's proud of you, but you are creating the dream and the opportunity for this next generation to become the next space engineers and creating the idea that the infinite is possible and that space is a true opportunity.
زي ما قال سمو ولي العهد محمد بن سلمان، نحن دولة للحالمين. أي حد عنده حلم يقدر يحلم عشان يوصل، وبدعم منه وبدعم من السعودية كاملة بإذن الله احنا حنوصل للهدف اللي احنا نبغاه. I am Saudi National Astronaut Rayana Barnawi.
We're now at T-minus 1 hour, 42 minutes, and 55 seconds until liftoff of AX2. We have confirmation that the side hatch was closed, and we got a good leak check. So everything is continuing to progress on time.
Great. And as operations continue, we want to provide an overview of some of the science and research activities planned for the AX2 mission. To help us unpack the breadth of Axiom-managed payloads is one who has helped every principal investigation team prepare for this mission, our very own chief scientist, Dr. Lucy Lowe. She's at Kennedy Space Center in Florida with Axiom Space Director of Digital Strategy, Sonia Gavankar-McKay. Sonia, great to see you, and we're excited to understand what's ahead in the next couple of weeks for our crew.
Thanks so much, Duke. It's great to be here with all of you as the excitement really builds toward launch. We're just a few miles away. In fact, you may be able to see the Falcon 9 rocket with the AX2 crew on board just over my shoulder. And yes, I'm joined with Axiom Space Chief Scientist for Microgravity Research, Dr. Lucy Lowe. Lucy, how excited are you for what's to come?
Hi, Sonia. I mean, it's a fantastically exciting mission. There is an absolute massive amount of research that the crew is going to be doing, and I can't wait to see them get started.
And there is a massive amount of research they have to do, and we have just a little bit of time to cover it, so let's dive right in. It is packed for it, but what has been the scientific strategy for this mission, and what do we expect to see?
So the scientific strategy is really continuing what we did on AX1, which is expanding access to microgravity for a whole new global community of researchers. So we're really excited to welcome on board our Saudi Arabian partners and see them do the research they want to do. We also have some opportunities to expand commercial opportunities by manufacturing products in space that could be beneficial for life here on Earth. So we have a glut of projects that are going to be doing all kinds of stuff about in-space manufacturing. So we're really excited about those.
Now, you've organized the portfolio into 5 main categories, and we're going to kind of touch on each one of them very briefly. Let's start with physical sciences. I noticed that from the list there is radiation protection research as well as some storm-related research that is looking at how weather and climate and seeding clouds. Tell me what this all means.
Exactly. So we have a really fun experiment that's brought from us from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia looking at cloud seeding. So they're looking at how silver iodide crystals can actually form water vapor in a specially designed chamber. So they're not only understanding how cloud seeding could be more effective here on Earth, but they're also looking with a vision to perhaps extraterrestrial agriculture, so maybe growing crops on the moon and in Mars in future.
Wow.
We also have projects looking at radiation shielding, so the sun spits out a bunch of radiation. So looking at how different kinds of polymers could actually protect the electronics on the space station could actually help with future spacecraft design. And then finally, you mentioned storms. We have some really fun projects where the crew are actually going to be trying to capture images of what we call transient luminous effects, which are events which occur just above thunderstorms at the same time that lightning strikes. And we can't see them from the ground because we're underneath the clouds. So on top of the clouds, we can see these phenomena, and it helps us understand more about our own weather and climate down here on Earth.
Excellent. So the next portfolio is life sciences. Research includes DNA, nanomaterials, and reprogramming skin cells to help create regenerative medicine. There's also research planned to build on AX1 science modeling tumor organoids to better predict and treat cancers. Can you break down a few of those for us and tell me again what we can expect to see, what the astronauts will be doing up in space?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I refer to some of those in-space manufacturing projects, so the DNA-inspired nanomaterial that you referred to could actually be used as a therapeutic delivery agent in future, or as a scaffolding for degenerating joints. We have also projects looking at 3D bioprinted tissues, so looking at liver and kidney and seeing how they respond in microgravity, which could be potentially very informative for helping us understand regenerative medicine efforts. And then we have a whole other project on stem cell manufacturing, which could actually then help with lots of kind of clinical applications here on Earth. So lots of research on that end, not even to mention all of the human research that our crew are very willing participants in, where they're doing all kinds of experiments to see how the human body responds to space, how it adapts to microgravity, and how we can use that knowledge not only to make space travel more safe for humans in future, but also help us understand our own physiology back here on Earth a little bit better.
Okay, on to tech. The research being conducted here seems to be how can we automate more to take up less time doing things like data transfer. We know about that on Earth. What's it like up in space? Making communications with Earth easier and literally tracking where supplies and materials are on board. I mean, they have a lot of space up there inside the building, right? So they have to be able to track where everything is, loose bolts and whatnot. What stands out to you in this research?
So it's interesting you mention how much space there is up there because there's fairly limited space.
Yeah,
so
they
we
can't
have
build
some,
more.
They can't exactly. So we have some Axium technology demonstrations where we're demoing some of our own technologies that we can use on Axium Station in future. But we also have some really fun technology demonstrations from our partners that are sampling the air inside the ISS. They're using special sensors called quartz crystal microbalances that can detect tiny molecules in the air and tell us a bit about the air quality inside the ISS. And then we have a really fun project from the MIT Media Lab where they're looking at what they call a gravity countermeasures loading suit or a skin suit, which actually models some of the effects of gravity on our crew, and so it helps them prevent some of the physical deconditioning that astronauts see when they go into space.
Really important research.
Absolutely.
What do you think the air is like up there?
I hear it smells of electronical equipment.
Oh, okay. So we'll wait for those little cubes to tell us a little bit more information and figure out how we can scrub it. Okay. Partnerships also very important with Axiom Space since it started, and it's really great to hear about all of this research that's really coming from so many institutions, educational organizations. Lucy, how are you seeing the commercial opportunities evolve, and what's the goal for us long term?
Yeah, absolutely. Great question. So we continue to expand our partnerships with a number of global research communities, which is really exciting, seeing really exciting research come in from new communities, new organizations, new researchers that have historically not had access to microgravity, and now we can provide that. But as I said, we're also very interested in opening up these new commercial economic opportunities to do things in space that can create materials or biomedical products that can benefit life here on Earth, because that's ultimately what we want to do at Axium. Is everything we do in space, we want to be benefiting every human everywhere, which includes not just the astronauts, but all of us back down here as well.
Well, thank you so much, Lucy, for all your time. We're going to be talking to you during the mission as well to find out a little bit more about what's been transpiring up in space, what we expect to see down here, and so much more will come our way. Thank you so much, Lucy, for your time.
Thank you, Sonia.
Well, that is amazing groundbreaking work that we're going to be seeing, the additional insights of these studies, and so much. You can follow the efforts as they play out on orbit. Just visit us at axiomspace.com/AX2 research. We're going to send you back now to Hawthorne, to Duke and Kate. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you, Dr. Lowe. Well, switching gears a bit, Axiom Space is also working to create partnerships with companies that you wouldn't typically expect to hear about going to space. Some of those companies end up with some representation on board a mission as well.
Besides the crew, the Dragon is also carrying hundreds of kilograms of supplies and resources for the mission. Most of these materials are essential supplies, but every mission has a few fun surprises. One of those that's often discussed is the highly anticipated microgravity indicator. This is actually the only item inside Dragon that isn't secured at launch. Once the crew successfully reach orbit, the microgravity indicator will begin to float, allowing all of us to visually see what we've completed during the launch phase of the mission.
And to reveal the indicator, a fifth crew member named Gigi here is a very special greeting from Sharon, John, and a few of the younger Axiom family members who helped prepare the indicator for this flight.
Hi, it's Sharon John, Build-A-Bear CEO and President. We're incredibly thrilled to be a part of the AX2 mission to space. Thank you so much for this incredible opportunity. We also wanted to be sure and wish good luck to all of the brave, wonderful crew members that are headed off to space, and hope that an extra fifth furry crew member brings you luck. With that in mind, we wanted to also send you off with a very special heart ceremony. As some of you may know, we have heart ceremonies at Build-A-Bear workshops, but we've created a really special one for today.
So what we're gonna do, guys, is we're gonna do a special heart ceremony. So what you're gonna do is you guys are gonna warm up your hearts like this, or rub them to get them nice and warm. Then you guys are gonna pat those hearts to get them started. Pat, pat, pat.
Rub it on your hands so they can steer the spaceship and stay on course.
Then you guys are gonna rub it on your ears so they can hear mission control loud and clear.
And rub it on your eyes so they have the best view of Earth. So let's have a safe and successful mission. Let's put the heart in our hands, hold it really tight, close your eyes and make a great big wish for them.
Then you guys are gonna give it a really big kiss. Mwah! Good job, guys.
It's overflowing.
Lots of love. Let's see it. All right. Thank you so much. We'll be thinking about all these hearts when we get to space and our little bear's floating, okay?
Wow, that was unbearably cute, if I do say so myself. We actually have a replica of the microgravity indicator on board with us here. This is a special edition Axiom Space Build-A-Bear, just like the one you saw in the video. Gigi is wearing the AX-EMU spacesuit that NASA's next generation of moonwalkers will use during the Artemis 3 mission, which will land the next humans on the moon in 2025. Using innovative technologies and a flexible design, these spacesuits will enable more exploration of the lunar surface than ever before. Speaking of Artemis 3 and these lunar missions, SpaceX is playing a significant role in that mission as well.
That's right. We are incredibly honored to be a part of NASA's Artemis program to establish a sustainable presence on the moon to prepare for missions to Mars. SpaceX will conduct an uncrewed demonstration mission to the moon with our new Starship vehicle prior to the Artemis 3 mission, marking humanity's first return to the lunar surface in more than 50 years. Starship's early flight tests, followed by regular Starlink deployment missions and propellant transfer demonstrations, are also directly advancing NASA's Artemis program, along with SpaceX's ongoing mission to make life multiplanetary.
A big thanks to Sharon John and Build-A-Bear for their support in our mission. We're all really excited to see Gigi floating around inside the Dragon in the next couple hours. To learn more about Gigi and all the exciting efforts on this mission, visit axiomspace.com.
We're just over 90 minutes away as the Axiom 2 crew awaits its 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time liftoff from 39A at Kennedy Space Center. Right now, a quick status update. The crew's inside the capsule. The side hatch is closed as of about 30 minutes ago. Leak checks are complete. We've also had completion of comm checks between both Dragon and Falcon ground teams with the crew. Looking at weather right now, the weather continues to be good for launch and any contingencies if needed. Local pad weather continues to be that 25% probability of violation. We'll just watch over the last hour and a half if we get any clouds drifting over from inland. Conditions in the Atlantic are also good should we need a contingency landing somewhere along the eastern seaboard. Falcon 9 team will begin bleed in at T-minus 1 hour and 10-minute mark of the Merlin engines. And the latest update we've heard from the SpaceX team out at 39A, the support crew is leaving the crew access arm. With the hatch closed, all their work is finished. So right now, everything is on schedule at T-minus 1 hour, 30 minutes, and 28 seconds.
And with our crew safely inside Dragon Freedom and continuing their preparation for launch, let's head back over to Sonia Gavankar-McKay at Kennedy Space Center for a conversation with a member of the Saudi Space Commission. Sonia, this is an exciting moment for many around the world, but what does this mission mean for the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
That's a great question, Duke. Our work with KSA and any partner begins just years before the launch date. We started talking with KSA about 4 years ago. And like any commercial partnership, there are a lot of details to work out, and that's especially true with the U.S. commercial company signing with a direct agreement with a foreign nation. Once you get through the negotiation process and get to the actual signing of contracts, which took place in 2022, then you have to get to work planning, preparing, training for the mission. Not only are these partnerships beneficial for Axiom Space and our goals of building history and expanding access to low Earth orbit, but we're enabling nations like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, organizations and individuals to achieve their goals in space. Joining me now from the Saudi Space Commission to share how this mission and our partnerships are so critical to their ambitions beyond Earth. We are joined now with just the perfect person to talk to. Thanks so much for joining me here today, Ibrahim.
Thank you, Sonia. Thank you for having me.
Let's start with the ambitions of the kingdom. What brought you to this moment?
Of course, I'd say, on the personal side, I'm a space enthusiast, and I know there are so many space enthusiasts there in Saudi, and we're so excited to be here. And this is the first mission of the Saudi Astronaut Corps, and this program started to begin, and it will be a sustainable program.
Right. But why now? Why take this big leap right now?
Well, there's always a right time for something. This is a huge thing. Space is becoming more evolved now, and this is the right time for space. And we see so many nations are joining the space race, and Saudi has been there 38 years ago, actually, with Prince Sultan being the first Arab and first Muslim to go to space, and we're continuing this work in going with the first female Saudi and Muslim astronaut.
It's such a momentous moment. We talked about the first steps. We talked about the evolution. Long term, what are the goals for SSC?
So the national space strategy aims to have the kingdom to be a key player in the space sector.
Right.
This is just the beginning. This is just a first program, and this only looks at the sector of the human space flight, and we see this mission as a stepping stone that will continue to take presence in space.
And what does the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia have that's unique that you bring to the table?
I think you could No, like Rihanna's like for today, she's unique, becoming the first Muslim and Arab to go to the ISS, and also first. It's actually going to be the 6th country to have two from the same national astronauts in the station.
So this is, like we said, the first step. It's an exciting step. How do you feel right now?
Oh, my feeling. I can't really explain my feeling. I don't think that I have enough words to express my feeling. We're looking at the countdown. We're so excited. We've been waiting for this moment for a long time. We're so excited. We're so happy. We're tuning in to watch the launch. We can't wait to see them in orbit.
And you've spent a lot of time in Houston with us, right? Through all of the training, you've been there. You've kind of been training with these astronauts in the same way. Do you feel like you're part of the crew, or do you feel like a support system?
You know, to be honest, I wanted to be in the cargo, actually.
You're going to be a stowaway?
Yes, yeah. I really wanted to go with them. I feel like I am with them in the journey. I enjoyed like every moment. This is the most exciting moment, of course. I can't wait to see them in orbit, and I can't wait to see them back again. And I'm going to feel like I'm in space with them, but without the zero gravity, of course.
That's right. Well, it's been a pleasure to work with you and your entire team. I know that your entire Kingdom of Saudi Arabia feels like you're going along with this mission. As everybody looks upward to the skies for this mission, you do feel like you're part of the crew going along. So thank you for being such a wonderful partner with us. And we want to all stow away too. So we'll figure out a way for maybe the next time we go on another mission together.
I really appreciate it. Thank you. I'll be ready.
You'll be
I am
ready.
trained and ready.
You are. Thank you so much, Ibrahim.
Thank you.
This is an exciting time for so much of us here. We're so grateful for this partnership and so many things that we're going to achieve today together. Naturally, today we are focused on the launch of AX2 and the mission, celebrating the beginning of their 8-day mission. But it is interesting on how much of this mission serves its own chapter in the development of expanding opportunities in low Earth orbit. This crew is benefiting from prior missions, including AX1, as a way of passing the baton to this crew here and marking it as that special moment. Here are just a few words from Michael Lopez Alegria, Larry Connor, Mark Pathy, and Itan Stebe of the crew of AX1. Take a look.
Dear Peggy, John, Ali, and Rayana, together with you, the whole Akia team are counting down the days, the hours, the seconds towards your launch. The excitement is building as you are leading the way for more diverse explorers in space. May this journey inspire your families and people. As Sophocles said, numberless are the world wonders, but none more wonderful than man. The impact of your mission will cross borders and contribute to a much better world, because ليس هناك حلم مستحيل. There is no dream beyond reach. Good luck. Godspeed, AX2.
Hi, this is Mark Pathy, mission specialist from AX1, and I'm sending out my warmest greetings to the crew of AX2 as you count down the final days before your big launch. Peggy and John, I'm super excited for both of you. I know you've been waiting a while for this, and maybe a little bit jealous too. But I hope you have a great mission. And Ali and Ryana, although we haven't met, I've heard that you guys are a great addition to the team. Please take good care of my friends up there, and look forward to seeing all of you on the other side. Godspeed, AX2.
I am honored to have the opportunity to speak to all of you, the crew of AX2. You are about to embark on an extraordinary experience. I wish I could join you. I know it's been a great deal of work and effort, but you shall be rewarded. Good luck and Godspeed.
John, Ali, Ray, and of course, dear Peg. You guys must be getting very excited. It's getting real. By now, you're either already or about to be strapped in, comm checks, probably a little chit chat with each other, but most of all, the excitement is building. And I just want to give you a little preview that when the number of digits on the clock goes from 4 down to 3, so 10:00 to 9:59, starts to get pretty real. When it goes from 3 down to 2, 1:00 to 59 seconds, even more so. And you can imagine when it gets below 10 seconds what it's going to feel like. So enjoy the ride, Enjoy the sensation of floating. Definitely enjoy the view. And from the crew of AX1, we wish the 4 of you Godspeed.
It's absolutely incredible to be part of this rapidly growing effort and industry. Every mission points to the next, and I hope you feel the energy and anticipation like we can here on the Space Coast. Duke, Kate, this really never gets old. I say that this is my first time at a launch. What's the energy like out at Mission Control at SpaceX?
It's absolutely incredible, and I think you're right. It will never get old. This is just really a fantastic day for AX2, and how great to hear that message from AX1 as words of encouragement. Well, as we've mentioned, this is a privately funded mission, and so what that means is that the origins and primary funding for this mission are coming from places other than national space agencies. So it's not a government-driven effort, which is unique. Axium Space is pioneering partnerships between us, a commercial entity, directly with nations other than the United States, which may sound like a simple thing, but these kinds of partnerships, especially for the purpose of space exploration, are really covering new ground. We are so proud to be partnering with the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia for this mission, and while we view this relationship with them as a partnership, they are also our customer. NASA is another customer in this process. They'll actually be paying for some of Commander Peggy Whitson's time while she's on board station to conduct specific science that's of importance to them. So we're very proud to help meet the high demand for science and research in space, while pioneering the expansion of commercial spaceflight.
In addition to the first of their kind partnerships that Duke just mentioned, we also have a strong and growing partnership, SpaceX and Axiom Space. In the spaceflight business, a purely commercial entity paying another purely commercial entity to fly humans to space has been mostly unheard of, but our hope is that it will become more and more common. SpaceX is proud to continue growing our partnerships with Axiom Space, NASA, and other commercial companies who can put our services to good use for the benefit of humanity.
For the AX1 mission, we introduced a series of digital collectibles, and the response to those were really outstanding. So for this mission, Axiom Space will continue to push the boundaries of Web3 by partnering with several well-known digital artists and brands to celebrate the continued growth of the commercial space environment. Axiom Space 3 is our program that combines the promise of space exploration with the power of Web3 blockchain technology. This is a token-gated community network which allows members to engage with astronauts, space technology professionals, and Web3 entrepreneurs. For this mission, we'll kick things off by launching a brand new digital art collection by Art Blocks artist Nadia Bremer, an astronomer, data visualization designer, and artist. This new Art Blocks collection will feature a 484-piece algorithmically generated collection that showcases imaginary maps of the stars with unique constellations. To make this collection even more unique, the digital art will actually be initiated from on board the ISS by AX2 Commander Peggy Whitson. Additionally, the AX2 digital art collection will feature works by Thank You X, an American artist out of Los Angeles, California. Thank You X is sending up a piece of his physical art canvas to space, titled Urge for Perfection. He will also be releasing a commemorative NFT, which will celebrate this mission and the canvas going to space. This NFT will be available for purchase right at launch, and the sale will close by splashdown. These collaborations with digital artists and brands bring a new level of creativity and inclusivity to commercial space industries like ours. For more on this and all of our digital collectible activities, visit nft.axiomspace.com. There you can also find more instructions on how to get involved and buy your boarding pass to participate in all of the AX2 activities. Well, the most visible part of Axiom's work today is these missions to the International Space Station. These are just the leading edge of one aspect to the preparation for our real goal: operating a completely commercial space station and laboratory in low Earth orbit. These missions serve as an opportunity to learn and prepare for how to handle logistics, maintenance, schedules, routines, crew volume, and every other aspect of space missions. The roadmap that Axiom Space has created points to some major milestones to evolve our presence in space. They include deploying our own habitation modules and docking them to the front of the International Space Station, deploying our own solar panel and Earth observatory elements, overseeing long-duration space flights of 6 months or more that lead to a permanent presence of commercial activities off-planet, developing spacesuits and other necessary technology to live and work in space, and eventually breaking away from the International Space Station to be 100% independent as a commercial space station. While the launch of the first ever commercial space station module is still a couple of years from launch, the process of designing and now manufacturing have been underway since 2015. Here is a bit more
Dragon
on the
SpaceX
current
for
status.
Falcon 9 status update.
Go for Falcon 9 status.
The F9 team is going to take the action to vent the manifold for the pre-briefed Falcon 9 status. This will be a loud venting, so we do expect that you will hear it in the vehicle. They'll be taking that commanding shortly, but just giving you a heads up, you will hear this venting.
Okay, copy. Venting the manifold, and we expect to hear it. Thanks.
All right, so that was SpaceX core Arthur. And that was SpaceX core Arthur Bariault, just letting the crew know to expect loud venting noise. Again, that is the primary voice of communication to the crew to update them on status, as well as items like this where they can expect to hear something.
Good heads up for the crew there. So, talking about Axiom Space Station, here's a bit more on the current status, currently under construction.
We are building the world's first commercial space station, one element at a time. We think that what we're doing is for everyone, everywhere. This is a global endeavor. Our partner, Thales Alenia in Italy, is in the finishing stages of building the first module, the first pressure vessel.
We are here in the integration and manufacturing area of Thales Alenia Space. Here we have the two cones that will be part of the module. Is also the gate to the module to come in and to come out. The very big cylinder that will be the core of the module. Just to have an idea of the dimension of the real module, you can see me compared with the structure. On these ports, all the additional modules will be docked. This is the most complex piece of the entire Axiom module.
We're on pace to build a human-rated spaceship faster than anyone's ever built one. When we look at our roadmap, we look to see how we can double its capability every 5 years. It requires a lot of different talents and a lot of different engineering backgrounds, so we've really expanded the team.
I'm working on the time-sensitive network aspect of the space station. So that's the network, have all the flight computers synchronized and actually do the thruster firing at the perfect time.
So this is the command trailer. We're able to control our test stand, which enables us to vary our set pressures, our flow rates into the thruster in order to collect performance data at various OFs and chamber pressure conditions. It's always a blast to come out here, set everything up, and start lighting rockets off.
Behind us, we have the carbon dioxide removal subassembly. We're going to be creating the most integrated ecosystem that has ever been put into space thus far, which is a really cool thing to be able to say.
I fabricate PC boards and cables and harnessing. This is a life-critical job, and you want to make sure you do the best possible job.
"15 to 20 years from now, we're going to be surrounded by objects that we can't imagine how we live without, that were manufactured in space." I think there's another promise too, and that's why I'm really excited about the AX2 crew. There is this effect that people have gone to space and had this, it's called the overview effect. Many people have come back profoundly changed because of their experience. And I think the more people that we can have that see the world as the whole world, the better off we all are.
It's incredible to see how much these missions are able to impact the future of Axiom Station and private astronaut missions. And there's so much more underway that we can't show you just yet, but circling back to the here and now, it's missions like today's that pave the way that's right around the corner. While AX2 will spend less than 2 weeks in space, the value it adds to our discovery and planning process feels like it's years of experience. We're excited for these short duration missions and even more excited to be able to get into long duration missions as we begin to bring Axiom Station online. But before we get there, we still have at least 2 more flights to go, AX3 and AX4. We aren't quite ready yet to talk about the details of dates and crew members, but in the same way we're launching KSA astronauts today, we have also signed agreements with the nations of Turkey to fly some of their national astronauts and other nations. And as it was previously announced, we will be flying a member of the Italian Air Force on an upcoming mission as well. Between these new sovereign nations and the private citizens who now have a way to partake in the marvel of living and working in space, we are truly working to expand access to low Earth orbit for all. And that's not even counting the opportunities to help NASA, ESA, and JAXA find ways to expand their efforts in low Earth orbit.
It's all super exciting news and progress for the future of human spaceflight. We're really looking forward to successful completion of this mission as well as the 2 that are yet to come. Now, at the moment, let's check in with John I for another status update.
Just over 70 minutes away as the Axiom 2 crew awaits its 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time liftoff from Launch Pad 39A at Kennedy Space Center. You've got a view right now with the crew access arm. The seals along Dragon have actually been deflated. You can see a little bit of a gap between the capsule and the arm. The SpaceX team has left the tower. They're getting out of the hazard area. So everything continues to go on time as we've got the crew in the capsule with all activities complete to date. Currently weather, you can see the blue skies in the area, some clouds around there. We haven't had any updates that indicate things are better or worse than when we started the webcast. We're still at about a 25% probability of violation, but everything continues to look good. We do watch the upper altitude clouds as we get later and later into the afternoon. It's at the higher altitudes where the wind actually could carry some anvil clouds back over the pad in the ascent corridor. In that case, we've got to worry about things like lightning. But right now, the flight path downrange continues to be good for launch. But we're going to have to watch that until we get all the way down to T0. Now, as you can see, it's still daylight, obviously, at Kennedy Space Center. Folks in the local area are going to have a good view. But unlike a night launch where people all up and down the eastern seaboard of the United States can see the vehicle, you're going to have to be in the local area to watch Falcon 9 with Dragon take off. View you see right now is looking down from on top of the service structure at the top of the crew access arm, the Dragon capsule with the solar rays. And then below that is the Falcon 9, and you can see just a little bit of the transporter erector, the arms actually that will open up around the second stage as we get down into the last 4 minutes of the countdown. Another view, Falcon 9 with Dragon on pad 39A. We've been listening in the Falcon 9 team, the Dragon team. They are on schedule, reporting no significant issues. Everything continuing to look good. Now, one update that'll be a little different on this flight, the first stage will be coming back to what we call a land landing or return to launch site. And so we'll continue to cover that as the second stage with Dragon heads into orbit. One difference you're going to see this time is given the trajectory of Falcon 9 when we carry astronauts to space, we can come back now to the landing site just down from Kennedy Space Center. But what that means is we're going to have a slightly different sequence of burns. We'll do the boost back burn with 3 engines as is traditional coming back to land. The entry burn as we get to the atmosphere fringe, that's a single engine, and it's a fairly short burn. We don't have to slow down much. but when we land, we're going to light 3 engines. And right now, T-minus 1 hour, 7 minutes, 25 seconds and counting. Everything is go for an on-time launch.
A big thanks to all of you tuning in now as we welcome NASA and their coverage of the second Axiom mission, AX2. You're joining us here with live views from NASA's Kennedy Space Center. Specifically, this is the iconic Launch Complex 39A with a Falcon 9 rocket and Dragon spacecraft that are in the final stages of preparation, leading to launch in just over an hour from now. As the name suggests, this is the second flight for Axiom Space with a handful of noteworthy firsts. This 10-day mission will see the first female commander of a private space mission, legend and former NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. Our pilot, John Schaffner, will soon become the first Alaskan astronaut. And 2 national astronauts will be the first from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia to fly to the International Space Station, Ali Al-Qarni and Rayana Barnawi. Taken together as a crew, this is the first private mission with private astronauts and astronauts representing non-US nations through direct commercial arrangements. And that's just to name a few. My name is Duke Brady, and I'm a multimedia specialist at Axiom Space, based out of Houston, Texas.
And I'm Kate Tice, Quality Systems Engineering Manager here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. And as Duke just mentioned, our coverage has now expanded to NASA television, and we would like to welcome NASA's Leah Cheshire from Johnson Space Center in Houston, Texas. Hey, Leah.
Hey, Kate, great to see you and Duke, and I'm excited to join as we get closer to launch, so thank you so much for having me. I am here in Mission Control Houston, where the Orbit 3 team is coming on and taking over from the Orbit 2 shift. These teams are monitoring the station and its crew 24/7. And of course, in here today, we'll be watching the launch with the International Space Station flying 260 miles over the southwest coast of Ireland at the time of liftoff. But we've still got some counting down to do before then, so back to you guys at SpaceX.
Thanks, Leah. Now, liftoff time is still holding for 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, and we're tracking no issues with Falcon 9 or Dragon. The range is green, and the weather is cooperating, as we saw earlier. Really picture-perfect views coming to us from Kennedy Space Center, as you can see there. Now, over the last 3 hours, Axiom astronauts Peggy Whitson, John Schaffner, Ali Al-Qarni, and Rayana Barnawi donned their SpaceX suits in our suit-up room and were then transported to the pad where our crew entered the SpaceX Dragon spacecraft that you see there live on your screen.
And since arriving at that spacecraft, our crew were helped by the closeout engineers to get into their seats, attach their suits to special umbilicals that provide breathing air and communication links to Dragon's systems. They conducted successful leak checks and communications checks with the core here in Hawthorne, which is the person dedicated to speaking directly to the crew throughout the mission.
The closeout team sealed the hatch, which also got its own leak check, and they have departed the pad. Coming up, weather operators kick off their final check on wind speeds at the pad before the final go, no-go for launch. Now, before we get to that final go, no-go, the SpaceX team will do an internal poll, making sure conditions are steady with Falcon 9, Dragon, the crew, the range, and weather.
A lot of things needing to line up there.
Absolutely. Now, as the countdown continues, we are now approaching T-minus 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 15 seconds. Let's take a moment to get reacquainted with our crew today.
The AX2 mission commander is Axiom Space's Director of Human Spaceflight and retired NASA astronaut Peggy Whitson. During her career with NASA, Peggy flew 3 long-duration missions to the ISS and has more cumulative time in space, 665 days, than any U.S. astronaut and more than any woman in the world. She has conducted 10 spacewalks with over 60 hours to her credit.
Dragon SpaceX cycling orbit tank isolation valves to equalize low flow pressure.
Dragon copy.
And that was the voice of Peggy Whitson, who also performed hundreds of research experiments on board the ISS.
The pilot for AX2 is private astronaut John Schaffner. A STEAM advocate, business pioneer, and lifelong space enthusiast, he's been a pilot since the age of 17 and participates in extreme sports from hang gliding to base jumping to high-performance racing. Sounds like a busy guy. John trained as the AX1 backup pilot, and during this mission plans to invest a lot of his time in STEAM education activities aimed at empowering educators.
And representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as mission specialist, Ali Al-Karni is an Air Force captain in the Royal Saudi Air Force. Ali graduated with a Bachelor of Aerospace Science degree in 2013 from King Faisal Air Academy in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia. Having flown as a fighter pilot for 12 years, Ali was selected as an astronaut in 2020.
Also representing the Saudi Space Commission and serving as a mission specialist, Rayana Barnawi has a master's degree in biomedical sciences from Al Faisal University in Riyadh, Saudi Arabia, and a bachelor's degree in biomedical sciences from Otago University in Dunedin, New Zealand. She has been a research lab technician since 2013 in the Stem Cell and Tissue Reengineering program at King Faisal Specialist Hospital and Research Center.
You've seen the vehicle, you've met the crew. Let's send you over now to NASA's Johnson Space Center, where Leah Cheshire is following the launch preparations from Mission Control in Houston. Leah?
Thanks, Duke. You're right. I'm here in the International Space Station Flight Control Room at Johnson, where teams staff this room around the clock to monitor the crew and the systems aboard the orbiting laboratory. Today, they're ensuring that the station is ready to receive Dragon and the AX2 crew. Since NASA opened up the space station for commercial activity in 2019, the agency has continued to work with private industry to prepare for the future of low Earth orbit. NASA's long-term goal is to no longer be the provider of a low Earth orbit destination, but to be a customer, one of many, purchasing commercially owned and operated services. To ensure the path of tomorrow, we have to work together today. Enabling private astronaut missions on board the space station helps us to refine and mature the processes needed for the future, with NASA astronauts working side by side with private and national astronauts in a new age of science and discovery. And we take this next step together as we continue counting down to the AX2 crew launch to the International Space Station. As you can see, it's an incredibly busy time in low Earth orbit and beyond. And with that, let's connect with NASA Public Affairs Officer Megan Cruz at Kennedy Space Center.
You know, Leo, we love our launch days here at Kennedy Space Center, and we love it when we can witness them with NASA Administrator Bill Nelson. Administrator, great to have you here.
It's always a pleasure.
So as Leah said, it's been a busy, exciting 3 years here at Kennedy. Since 2020, we've launched 7 crewed missions to the ISS, but we've also paved the way for private missions like Axium 1 last year and today AX2. So I want to ask you, how are NASA and the general public benefiting from these private missions?
Well, we go in a public-private partnership, and we go with a fixed-price contract. And because it's a public-private partnership, the private partner is putting skin in the game, or in other words, investing, so that at the end of the day, the cost to the federal government is less. And that's the way we're going back to the moon and then on to Mars. And we do it also differently, is we're going on an international mission. And so, as we have announced, the first crew to go back to the moon in a half century, it has a Canadian astronaut that's part of the crew.
Mm-hmm. And I think also what's great is that we're opening up low Earth orbit to new partners, as you were saying. So, you know, we we will continue to use the space station through 2030, and then after that, the agency will transition to, as you know, commercially owned stations. So, how is that transition going? What's the latest on that?
Well, the goal is we want to bring space business off of the Earth up into low Earth orbit, and to do that, we, NASA, want to concentrate our efforts going on further into the cosmos. And so we want to bring in our public-private partnership to encourage them to do low Earth orbit. And therefore, when we're through with the space station in 2030, and it will be pretty old by that time. It's time to move on to commercial space stations. We can still what we, NASA, need to do in low Earth orbit by utilizing the commercial stations. And we've given seed money to 4 companies to build commercial space stations in low Earth orbit.
And one of those is Axium Space.
And Axium is going to start their venture, by the way, not only of getting accustomed to taking private astronauts into space as this mission is, it also is helping us with our international partnerships because we have 2 Saudis on this trip. But it also will have its first component of its space station, and it's going to dock to the International Space Station.
So a lot of exciting things, as we keep saying, in the years ahead. So I do want to talk to you about, you've been alluding to the Artemis program, the fact that working with these commercial companies to continue access to low Earth orbit, it allows us to think farther. So yeah, talk to us about some of the international partnerships that are helping the Artemis program.
Well, we have some 15 partners that have, if not built, are certainly participating in the International Space Station. And this, of course, is a huge structure, 120 yards long. You think from one goalpost to the other goalpost in a football stadium. That's how big it is. And they are very much you're seeing the results of that public-private partnership here. Another example is look at the phenomenal success of SpaceX as a means of getting to and from the space station. So when we shut down the space shuttle a dozen years ago, now we rely on a private company to go to the International Space Station. In this case, it's SpaceX. In July, it will be Boeing as well.
Any words to the AX2 crew today?
Well, first of all, I wish I were with you. And secondly, Godspeed to all of you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Administrator, and I hope you enjoyed today's launch.
Thanks.
And so, again, we were talking a little bit about the Artemis program. Did you know that NASA and Axiom Space are also working together to design the suits our astronauts will wear when they land on the moon in the next few years? Here's a sneak peek at what those suits will look like. This is a prototype of what astronauts will wear when they land on the moon for Artemis 3. While this prototype is black with blue and orange detailing, the real moonwalking suits will be white to reflect heat and keep astronauts safe from extreme temperatures. NASA selected Axiom Space to design, develop, and certify the suits. They will fit a broad range of crew members, men and women, accommodating at least 90% of the U.S. population.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The moon suits worn by Apollo 11 astronauts in 1969 had a bulky life support system. The new Axiom Extravehicular Mobility Units, or AXEMUs, will have range of motion and flexibility needed to explore the lunar South Pole. They will give astronauts the capability to access, live, and work on the moon. Future versions could even have avionics. Astronauts will start training with the spacesuits later this year. That's a look at your Artemis Moon Minute.
While the International Space Station has been a valuable asset for space research and exploration, the rise of commercial spaceflight is opening new doors. Those benefiting from the new opportunities range from small commercial entities all the way to national space agencies. This expansion of participation in space is enabling a more diverse and inclusive space industry with a much wider range of perspectives, ideas, and expertise. Additionally, the competitive nature of commercial activities means the cost of participating is falling, and there are more participants to share those costs and the risks. Expanding access to space also promotes innovation and scientific and technological progress, benefiting humanity as a whole. For a long time, the conversation has been about someday having private space flights, and someday we'll have private astronauts. Well, there's a lot of room to grow from that. That someday is now. Low Earth orbit is more accessible than ever before as space research and technology enter a new era. Companies like Axium Space are expanding this access, and young space agencies like the Saudi Space Commission now have a path to achieve their goals in low Earth orbit. At Kennedy Space Center is Axiom Space's Director of Digital Strategy, Sonia Gavankar-McKay, and with her is a member of the Saudi Space Commission to talk about their goals for this mission. Sonia?
Thanks so much, Duke. As you mentioned, I'm joined by Ahmed Al-Ghafali of the Saudi Space Commission, but also Axiom Space's Chief Revenue Officer, Tejpal Bhatia. And I'm going to jump right in here because we're so close to launch time. This is the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's second flight into space. The first was in 1985 on the STS-51G. What does this mission mean for the nation and the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia?
I believe that the kingdom has gone a long way since 1985. So many satellites have been launched ever since. So many payloads have been developed ever since. A lot of research were conducted related to space, payloads, conducts, a lot of components that we've done that could be used for space and other sectors. So that's a long way since that time. And here we are today, just an hour away from this historical mission that will carry 2 Saudi astronauts for the first time to the International Space Station. However, I do believe that it's not only Saudi that has gone a long way. I looked at so many research and so many financial forecasts that suggest that within the past 20 years, 60% of the investment in space only happened within the past 2 or 3 years. So there is a momentum, and we want to be a part of it.
That's wonderful. Tejpa, your efforts with KSA and the efforts that Axiom Space puts into this mission allow for a vision for so much in low Earth orbit. What can Axiom Space really do to help nations like the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia and so many others achieve their goals?
Thanks, Sonia. When I think about what we're doing with the kingdom, from the first time I met Ahmed, my definition of the word partner has fundamentally changed and evolved. From when this was an idea and started formulating as a mission to execution, we had to overcome a lot of challenges, and these are things that are being done for the first time in human history. And what I've seen in our relationship is that definition of partnership to overcome those problems and make these things a reality are enormous. And what is happening in this situation is, while we are enabling the kingdom to get to the International Space Station, the kingdom is enabling us to see our vision of providing access to all nations in the world and increasing the cadence of astronauts from every nation to go up into low Earth orbit.
That's wonderful. This astronaut program is new for the kingdom. How has this process evolved through this year? Are you seeing that it's exponentially growing like the infrastructure is?
Of course. I mean, when we started this program about a year ago with this collaboration with Axiom, the first thing that we started is for the process of the selection, which is one of the main and major milestones to achieve any successful program like that. So we built our program for the selection based on the best practices that we developed together, based on the benchmarks from NASA, for instance. However, that's only a part of it. Then comes to, if you want to build a program, you want to make sure that all the enablers are in place, especially when it comes to the infrastructure, and also for the right people with the right competencies to be able to run such a complex program. So we've been building for the past year, utilizing this project as a vehicle to train, to get those people with the right competencies, not only to do the training for the astronaut corps, but also you want to, even for the media, for the finance, for the legal, for the R&D, for the integration. All of it is a part of this secret recipe to get a successful program. And this is only the start, so we're going to keep building and enhancing this program till we get to the point that is optimum.
Excellent. Tejpal, as we have only about 1 minute left, what's it like working with individuals versus nations? What's the difference in that relationship like for Axiom Space?
Yeah, so, trying to compare a private astronaut with a national astronaut is like asking me to compare my children. Luckily, I only have one child, so I'm prepared to do this. Let's start with what's the same. Each of these individuals on this mission right now are pioneers. Very few people in human history have been to the International Space Station. Today, we're going to see 3 more join. And each individual represents their country and humanity, and they're going to inspire girls and boys all over the world today and moving forward. The big difference is with the Kingdom seeing this more as a program.
Right.
You know, when we were inspired as kids, I'll speak about myself coming here with my parents or seeing the shuttle program, it was a long time before it became a reality. Right. And what we're going to see with the Kingdom is this happening more and more as we go forward.
And as they say, the sky is the limit for this partnerships, the opportunities for nations, individuals to grow together. Thank you to both of you for joining me. And we're getting so close to launch, so I'll let you get back to it as we toss it back to Hawthorne, where I'm sure you're feeling the anticipation. It's getting so exciting out there. What does it feel like to you? And I know John I is out there as well.
Well, thank you, Sonia. And yes, it's a time where the energy is increasing, especially we're inside of 47 minutes to launch. Now, currently, the SpaceX launch director is checking with the Dragon mission director, make sure that the Dragon ground team is ready to begin propellant loading in just over 10 minutes from now. The SpaceX launch director is also electronically polling the 7 members of the SpaceX launch team for their go to load propellant and launch. Now, once we get that go, when we get green lights across the board here on the procedure, the launch director will then come back and make a series of announcements. They'll talk about the control room, what to do during the countdown, as well as protocols for hold and launch escape. Coming up on 46 minutes, they're continuing to get the goes from the team electronically. We're waiting to hear the launch director give those instructions. That ought to come within the next minute. Now, once we get through the instructions, that will give the clearance to retract the crew access arm. That will then set up for arming of the launch escape system, and that will take us into propellant load itself. That'll begin at T-minus 35 minutes. You can see on the monitor the crew on the right-hand side. They're getting ready for their final directions here. On the left side, we've got the Dragon capsule, the crew access arm.
Polls complete, and the team is ready for crew access arm retract, propellant load, and launch. Reminder for control room lockdown for all operators in Mission Control and Firing Room 4. Both control rooms will go into lockdown at T-minus 45 minutes, which is now, and remain in that state until the launch escape system is disarmed. All operators remain at their console and maintain a sterile cockpit until MD confirms successful disarming of the launch escape system following orbital insertion or propellant offload in the event of a scrub. Reminder on hold and launch escape protocol. For non-urgent no-go conditions, brief CE or LD, and they will approve aborting the countdown. For urgent issues affecting the safety of the operation, operators shall call hold on the countdown net. Launch control will abort launch immediately and proceed into the launch abort auto sequence. At T-minus 10 seconds, launch control will be hands-off and relying on automated abort criteria for the remainder of the count. Finally, operators shall advise launch director whether structural breakup or fire is imminent or occurring for Dragon manual escape flight rules. Finally, regarding leak-through on the first stage ACS isolation valve, we will manually monitor the pressure in the manifold. Stage 1 will assess and at T-minus 35 seconds indicate whether the pressure rise is within the predicted range. If it is not, Stage 1 will call a hold on the countdown net. Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, launch control, you may proceed with arming the crew arm for movement.
We're go to proceed with propellant load.
Crew access arm retraction has
and
started.
The crew access arm, Kate, it's going to begin retracting. We're getting into that next dynamic phase where a lot of events start happening over the next 10 minutes. Now, while we wait for the arm to begin moving, currently Falcon 9 Dragon continue to be go. Obviously, we've completed the poll. The range continues to be go for launch. They're monitoring clearance area around the pad. And there goes the arm beginning to move, the view from on top of the fixed service structure. And the weather continues to be acceptable for launch as we get ever closer. Nice view from the camera inside the white room as the arm moves away from Dragon.
The clock continues to tick down. We're now at T-minus 42 minutes mark on the dot.
Crew axis arm retraction is complete.
As you just heard there, that crew axis arm is now completely stowed. It is now in the launch position, of course necessary in order to clear the way for Falcon 9 to lift off. Now, next up, we'll hear the call out that the launch escape system is going to be armed, and from there, we'll hear that Falcon 9 propellant load will also begin.
Dragon, SpaceX, you are go for Section 6. Close visors and arm launch escape system.
Copy. Go for Section 6.
We saw our AX2 crew members exit the brand new suit-up room located in the Falcon Support Building just about 3 hours ago. They also got their tablets.
And SpaceX Dragon. Visors are closed, and we're arming the launch escape system now.
Those tablets provide them with all the information they'll need for the mission. You see them attached to their left legs. Shortly after that point, the crew took one last ride in the Teslas to launch pad 39A, ascended the fixed service structure, signed the white wall, and ingressed into Dragon. After getting buckled in, the spacecraft hatch was closed, and the closeout technicians cleared the pad, leaving just the crew members inside the Dragon vehicle.
All right, so as we heard the call out, we are arming the launch escape system, which is a system that basically gives the crew options, a pathway to safety through all phases to orbit. We
Launch
take
escape
every
system is verified armed.
We take every measure possible to ensure that the crew has options. Safety is paramount. So there we just got that confirmation that that launch escape system is now armed. So let's take a look at the teams that are actually working together to make sure this mission is a success. SpaceX is operating out of 2 control rooms today. There on your screen, a live view of our launch control in firing room 4 at Cape Canaveral. This team is responsible for monitoring Falcon 9 throughout the countdown and launch. Second, we have mission control here at SpaceX headquarters in Hawthorne, California. This team in mission control is responsible for close monitoring of the crew and Dragon every step of the way as the spacecraft orbits the planet along its customized flight path. On console or headset, there are a number of key positions who are monitoring the health of the vehicle and crew. The mission director, that person is responsible for mission success, and they are in charge of the room. Today's mission director is Ken Gamerick. Other positions are focused on things like software, propulsion, navigation, avionics, life support systems, and communications with ground segments, as we've heard those kind of called out throughout the day so far. You'll also hear a specific person dedicated to communicating with the AX2 crew. They are the Crew Operations Responsible Engineer, or CORE, C-O-R-E. Today's SpaceX CORE is Arthur Berrialt. We've heard him a number of times through the launch countdown. The SpaceX team members will also rotate and hand off coverage to ensure that we have people on console 24/7 for the crew and Dragon for the entire duration of the mission, including all the way through splashdown.
And for Axium Space, the teams in Houston are utilizing Axium Mission Control Center, an officially certified control center. From this secure facility, teams have live access to voice, video, and data from the ISS and can work alongside their NASA counterparts to run on-orbit operations and monitor every aspect of the mission in real time. This room is led by what we call the Axle, or the Axiom Operations Lead. And around the room are positions for officers responsible for research, communications, medical, integration and stowage, and timeline operations. This is a significant step in our journey to expand access to low Earth orbit, as it is only the 12th ground segment partner for the ISS program. And through this facility, we are enabling our customers and the global community a front row seat to the work being done on station. We are now T-minus 37 minutes and 31 seconds from the second all-private astronaut mission to the International Space Station, and the first for any representatives from the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Falcon 9 propellant loading began at T-minus 35 minutes. RP-1 fuel loading is underway on both S1 and S2. And LOX loading is underway
Falcon
on
9 tanks
S1.
will be venting for propellant load. Expect loud venting.
With propellant load, let's go check in with John I.
John Innsbrucker here from the webcast desk in Hawthorne, California at SpaceX headquarters. Inside 37 minutes, counting down, we have completed the go, no go poll for propellant load and for launch. We've just heard a call out. They are now venting down the tanks. That's one of the steps in propellant load. The next major activity will occur at T-minus 35 minutes when propellant loading will physically begin onto the vehicle. Now we'll start with RP1 kerosene fuel loading onto both the first and second stages, and we'll be loading liquid oxygen onto the first stage of Falcon 9. Now, in order to fly, just like Falcon 9, Dragon needs its fuel and oxidizer. The Dragon capsule you can see here on the screen, it uses a monomethyl hydrazine called MMH. That's the fuel that's on board the Dragon. And nitrogen tetroxide, or NTO, is the oxidizer. Together, these propellants feed the Draco engines that maneuver Dragon on orbit, as well as the 8 Super Draco engines that would power the launch escape system in the case of an abort scenario. Now again, coming up in about 40 seconds, we will begin fueling on the Falcon 9. That means right now that those 8 Super Draco engines inside Crew Dragon are ready, if needed, to launch the capsule away from the Falcon 9 rocket in an instant, should there be any kind of an emergency associated with the rocket or the pad. But currently, 35 minutes, 18 seconds and counting, everything continues to look good on Falcon 9 and Dragon.
Thank you, John. On the AX-1 flight and during our launch broadcast for that mission, there was a special emphasis on the TRISH research effort, or the Translational Research Institute for Space Health. As the name
Propellant
suggests,
load has started.
okay, it sounds like a propellant load has started. As for TRISH, as the name suggests, this is a broad effort aimed at ensuring we understand and are preparing for human health beyond our home planet. This is an effort that NASA astronauts and private astronauts can both participate in. Naturally, life just a few hundred miles above Earth poses some unique challenges that we're still unlocking the secrets to even after 60+ years of humans in space. Here is a bit more on the progress made during AX-1 and what's ahead for our participation in this critical research effort.
Thank you for joining us, Dr. Fogarty and Dr. Urqueta from TRISH, the Translational Research Institute for Space Health. Let's start with an easy question. What exactly is TRISH?
Yes, TRISH. TRISH is a consortium between Baylor College of Medicine, MIT, and Caltech. We are funded by NASA to relentlessly and innovatively solve the risks for human space exploration and use a variety of tools to get there, including commercial spaceflight.
What are the goals of the research being conducted for AX2 through TRISH?
That is a great question. The research that we're conducting on AX2 has been highly prioritized to solve the most important risks for human spaceflight as we are planning to go back to the moon and going to other planets. So all of these projects have been custom made and designed to be easy to collect, to take the least crew time, and to take the least mass, power, and volume. And an example is this kit that I have here. We provide one of these to each of the crew members, and it includes most of the hardware that they need to collect physiologic data, sensory motor, that is your balance, how it changes in space, some surveys, and also how the physiology changes in space. So all of these have been, again, customized for commercial spaceflight.
Talk to me about the framework for this research. How is this set up to enable new data for new flyers?
Yes, so the EXPAND program at TRISH has two main elements to its framework to accomplish the goals that were just set out by Dr. Urqueta. So we have essential measures, which have been harmonized with NASA's standard measures to make sure that we're collecting the same type of data on every crew member. So we can compare across people, across different missions to really maximize the value. And then we have exploratory studies as the second part of the framework. And this is where the known unknowns, the questions we have about spaceflight or the risks, have hypotheses generated, and we get to test them.
How does the research apply to those of us on Earth? I mean, some of us are maybe never going to be leaving this planet. Why do we care about this kind of work? Dr. Fogarty, Dr. Urqueta?
Yeah, this is where things get really exciting. So due to the constraints of spaceflight and the complexity, we have to be really focused on creating integrated and holistic solutions. We can't have individual solutions for every problem. Those constraints create a really ideal environment to bring things back to Earth, to put healthcare in people's hands. We believe that these are going to increase healthcare equity, the access to healthcare and the quality of healthcare, which then results in improved health outcomes.
How does this mission, AX2, add to the range of data?
That is a great question. In the last 61 plus years of human spaceflight, roughly only 650 people have flown into space. And if we look at the diversity of these, mostly are male, white males. And what we're seeing with commercial spaceflight is a more diverse population. We're seeing people from all ages, younger and older, as compared to your government astronauts. We're also seeing people from multiple demographics, backgrounds, training, education, and also people with medical conditions. So as we keep growing this database of civilians flying into space, we will have all of the tools that we need to make most humans being able to fly into space, stay for there longer, and enjoy the experience.
Thanks so much for joining us. I look forward to watching the launch with you and seeing the astronauts return and looking at their data.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We are now just under 30 minutes from the launch of AX2 mission. It has taken an enormous effort from an incredibly dedicated and hardworking team to get to this moment. Knowing that not everyone can be here to witness it, and even fewer get to share a message with the crew, we asked teams to record some words for this moment. As the countdown to launch continues, here are a few messages from those across the Axium family.
Peggy, you are an inspiration to so many people around the world. To me, it's been so impactful to see a woman like yourself make such great strides in exploration and achieve so many different types of firsts. My family and I will be watching you launch and cheering you on all the way to the ISS.
Hi Peggy, Kelly and Delta here. We just wanted to let you know that we're cheering you on. We're so excited to watch you launch. You're an inspiration to women and girls around the world, and you've been a personal inspiration to me in my own journey to space. We're so excited to watch you launch, and we'll be cheering you on here on Earth.
Go Peggy, go AX2!
To Peggy, our notorious space ninja, John, aka Loki, to Ali, who's also known as Slayer, and then to Rihanna, our very own ray of sunshine. Wishing you an amazing launch today, as well as a smooth journey to the ISS. Ad Astra AX2 crew.
Thank you, Peggy, John, Ali, and Rihanna, for inspiring the next generation of astronauts.
From our crew experience team to our AX2 crew,
we are so proud of everything you've accomplished, and we're excited for your successful journey home.
Send us a postcard.
Just wanted to say that we're super excited for all the groundbreaking researches you guys are going to do. We're rooting for you, and good luck.
The marketing team has been proud to support AX2 mission. Godspeed, AX2.
This is the Portable Life Support System team. We are very excited about the AX2 mission coming up and wish you all the best.
We're very excited for you guys. Y'all are such an inspiration, and we're rooting for you all the way through.
We wish you a safe and successful mission.
We want to congratulate the AX2 crew. Thank you so much for all of the inspiration, and we wish you the best on your journey.
AX2 crew, we're proud of you and good luck!
Hey AX2, all of us in avionics wish you safe travels and lots of fun. Godspeed.
This is the Environmental Controls and Life Support Systems team at Axium Space. We're super excited about the AX2 mission and want to wish the best to the crew.
AX2 crew, we are so proud of you here at Axium Space. This is the systems engineering team on the station program. Godspeed and Ad Astra on this groundbreaking mission.
From human resources to you,
go AX2!
We're sending all of our support to you guys from here in Axiom headquarters, and we just wanted to say congratulations on the AX2 mission.
Hey, this is Ryan Lee from the Pressure Garment team, wishing you on the AX2 flight all the best. Godspeed, guys. Go team! Go team, go team, go team, go!
Peggy, John, Ali, Rihanna, I look forward to seeing you flying in space and working aboard the International Space Station. I also wish you to enjoy your staying aboard for this another Making History mission. We are all proud of you, and we wait for you on the ground, and Godspeed.
big thanks to all those who contributed to those videos and everyone behind the crew today. A lot of really excited teams out there. And a special thanks to Kelly Girardi and the Space Gal, Emily Calandrelli, both big STEAM education advocates who you just saw as well. They dedicate their influence to increasing literacy and interest in science, especially for young girls, which is awesome.
Yeah. You know, Emily and Kelly are both moms to young girls, so it's safe to say that they have front row seats to knowing what is cool and inspiring. Now, speaking of front row seats, it's been feeling like we have one of our very own looking at Pad 39A with these camera views that we've been getting all morning and afternoon. Now, let's take a moment to get acquainted with the vehicles that you see there on your screen. The Falcon 9 rocket with a Dragon spacecraft on top together stand at about 215 feet, which is almost 30 feet taller than the Leaning Tower of Pisa in Italy. Falcon 9 is a reusable two-stage rocket, which means it's kind of like two rockets in one, the first stage and the second stage. The first stage is the bottom two-thirds of the vehicle. Today's booster is flying for the first time. You can think of it as the large bottom white portion and the middle black portion. So that's what we mean when we say the booster. The first stage is responsible for accelerating Falcon and Dragon through the Earth's atmosphere and into space. In order to do that, it has 9 Merlin engines at the bottom of the stage. Prior to liftoff, the Falcon 9 first stage is...
Stage 2 cryohelium load has started.
Actually, and currently underway, is being loaded up with nearly 1 million pounds of fuel and liquid oxygen. The Merlin engines on the first stage are optimized for sea level. They achieve 190,000 pounds of thrust during ascent and descent. The first stage accelerates the vehicle through the Earth's atmosphere into space and then separates from the rest of the rocket about 2.5 minutes into flight. From there, the first stage will head over to LZ-1. It will do what no other orbital class rocket in the world can do. It'll go right there, make its way back to Earth. Today marks the first time we are landing Falcon 9 on land for a crew mission. Previous crew missions landed on a drone ship stationed in the Atlantic Ocean. So pretty exciting first for us today. Landing back on land has a lot of benefits. For example, it eliminates the need for our recovery team to be stationed out at sea for days, and it improves our turnaround time to get Falcon 9 ready to fly again. Now, above the first stage is the second stage. The second stage has a single Merlin vacuum, or MVAC engine, and that ignites after the first stage separates. The second stage is essentially a smaller version of the first stage, whereas the first stage is designed to power the vehicle out of the Earth's atmosphere and through the forces of gravity. The second stage is specifically designed to operate in the vacuum of space. The second stage powers the Dragon spacecraft to its targeted drop-off orbit. The Dragon spacecraft itself is capable of carrying up to 7 passengers to and from Earth orbit and beyond. But as we've been seeing with those views inside the capsule, today we're carrying 4 people. We have the 4 members of the Axium 2 crew. It's the first private spacecraft to take humans to the space station and the only spacecraft currently flying that is capable of returning significant amounts of cargo to Earth. Like the Falcon 9 rocket, the Dragon spacecraft is also reusable. This will be the second flight for this particular Dragon spacecraft. This is Dragon Freedom that the AX-2 are flying in today. It previously supported NASA's Crew 4 mission in April 2022. Now, we are awaiting our T0 coming up in just over 23 minutes from now. The ground operations teams are doing a series of system checks to make sure both Dragon and Falcon 9 are ready for launch. Let's take a look at what the ascent portion of the mission will look like.
Now, once we hit T0, we're going to watch Falcon 9 and Dragon lift off from historic Pad 39A and make their ascent. Now, about 43 seconds into flight, Falcon 9's engines will throttle down to help pass through the period of maximum dynamic pressure on the rocket, what we typically refer to as max Q. It's worth noting, once we hit max Q, we'll be going supersonic, faster than the speed of sound.
Dynamic pressure, we can throttle up our Merlin engines once again. From there, at about 2.5 minutes into flight, we have a series of 3 events that happen in rapid succession. First is MECO, or main engine cutoff. This is where all 9 Merlin engines will shut off in preparation for stage separation, where, as the name suggests, that's where the first stage detaches from the second stage, with the first stage making its way back to Earth for landing as the second stage continues on its journey with the third event.
That event is SES-1, the second stage engine start number 1. That's where the Merlin vacuum engine lights up and propels the second stage, along with our AX2 crew and Dragon, into orbit.
As Stage 2 heads towards its targeted drop-off orbit, Stage 1 will execute 3 burns in order to make its way back to Earth. The first is the boost back burn, where 3 of the Merlin 1D engines will reignite and then shut down. This helps to head the booster back to Cape Canaveral. The second burn, or the entry burn, helps to slow the stage down in preparation for entry back through the Earth's atmosphere. At about 90 seconds after Dragon gets into orbit, Falcon 9 will then land back on Earth. The landing burn will bring the vehicle speed down rapidly in order to land back on land near the launch site today, around 8 minutes into mission. I should say that actually happens about a minute prior to that second engine cutoff.
Yep, you're right, Kate. So as the first stage is back on Earth, the second stage will cut off its single Merlin engine that was ignited right after stage separation. Once this happens, we wait for that all-important confirmation of a good orbital insertion. Then Dragon will begin its preparations and separate from the second stage. About 3 minutes after the second stage gets into orbit, we ought to get that great view from the forward camera showing Dragon with its 4-person crew drifting away from the second stage. And once Dragon is a short distance away, it will begin checking out those Draco maneuvering thrusters to make sure that Dragon continues to increase the separation distance from the second stage.
The nose cone deploy sequence will initiate just before T plus 12 minutes and finish around T plus 15 minutes, which will expose Dragon's docking mechanism in advance
Stage
of
2
arrival.
RP1 load is complete.
All right, that call out there telling us that RP1 loading is now complete on Stage 1. Now, in advance, or excuse me, on, I think we heard actually Stage 2 there. Now, that docking mechanism exposure will be in advance of arrival to the International Space Station. Now, with that, let's head over to Leah at Johnson Space Center in Houston for another update on how things are going there with station preparation. Hey, Leah.
Hey, Kate. The space station team here in Houston is focused on the critical systems on the station, and everything continues to function as expected ahead of launch. So the teams have verified the command path from the ground up through our constellation of communication satellites to the station. Everything is nominal. We love that word, and the station will be ready to receive Dragon tomorrow should they launch tonight. Mission Control Houston is go for launch. Once the crew arrives at station, the Expedition 69 crew will be there to welcome the AX2 crew on board. Right now, living in the station, we have 7 people. That includes NASA astronauts Frank Rubio, Woody Hoberg, and Steve Bowen, United Arab Emirates astronaut Sultan Al-Nayati, and Roscosmos cosmonauts Andrei Fedyayev, Sergei Prokopyev, and Dmitry Petelin. Flight Director Greg Whitney is on console now, leading flight controllers on the Orbit 3 team in Houston for launch, and Flight Director Marcos Flores will lead teams for docking tomorrow. A reminder that launch today will take about 16 hours to get to the station, with docking to the Node 2 Zenith, or space-facing port, scheduled just before 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. Once Dragon is fully docked to the station, the teams here in Houston will assist the Axium Space and Space Station astronauts with leak checks as they work to open hatches on both Dragon and inside the station's pressurized mating adapter. We expect hatch open to take place about 2 hours after docking. That's it for us here in Mission Control Houston, and I will send it back over to the team in Hawthorne. Duke?
Thanks, Leah. And all of that is set to begin in just over 18 minutes from right now. And I got to say, the energy around here is certainly rising. As Leah just mentioned, once the crew launches, they will spend the next 16 hours in Dragon, catching up to the International Space Station. That time on orbit and in Dragon will feature a variety of tasks, including some planned photography, but about half of that time is scheduled for sleep, which the crew will absolutely need because once they reach the ISS, they have quite the schedule ahead of them. They will spend 8 days on station conducting a variety of science investigations and technology demonstrations, including radiation protection research, studies on how to create rain and how to enhance our understanding of dangerous thunderstorms, as well as DNA research with nanomaterials and reprogramming skin cells to help create regenerative medicines. Wow. When they are not hands-on with research, they will be participating in numerous outreach events connecting with groups around the world. John, for instance, will use the station's ham radio to share a message with students. Beyond all that, Commander Peggy Whitson has assured us that each of them will carve out some time to simply pause and look down at the planet below as it speeds by at a cool 17,500 miles per hour.
I mean, I would imagine that if I were in space, my face would just be up against the window the whole time. On station, just in the cupola the whole time.
Yes, exactly.
Now, as we've said before, we have an instantaneous launch window. That means that we have 1 second. We're targeting 5:37 p.m. Eastern Time, 2:37 p.m. Pacific Time. So just 16.5 minutes from
Stage
now.
2 LOX load has begun.
That call out, they're telling us that the liquid oxygen on stage 2 is now beginning, the liquid oxygen on is beginning to be loaded onto stage 2. That will wrap up around T-2 minutes. Now, I was talking about the instantaneous launch window because we are essentially chasing the space station. We're trying to catch up to it. It means that in order for everything to be precisely lined up in terms of how much propellant we're taking on board, and obviously we don't want to take too much because everything about space is weight. How much weight are you taking? And so we want to optimize our path to the International Space Station. And so we basically have that instantaneous moment to take off.
All right, and that moment is coming soon. And as we approach the final moments of our countdown to launch, Axium Space CEO Mike Suffredini wanted to take a moment to reflect on this, the second Axium Space mission.
This mission today is very meaningful for Axiom Space. It's a watershed moment because it's our opportunity to really start bringing the rest of the world to the International Space Station. We're honored that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is flying with us here today. The 2 crew members flying are fantastic. They've done a great job in training. Of course, John Schaffner's been with us for a while. He's a backup on AX-1. We're excited for him to fly. Of course, the commander's Peggy Whitson, and while she's the first woman commander for a commercial mission, that's a big deal to us. I really don't think it's a huge deal to Peggy. She's flown so many times. This is, like riding a bike. But we're very excited for this crew, and we're looking forward to their mission. So, we don't do this by ourselves. Axiom is a wonderful company with fantastic employees. They've done quite a bit of work to get to this point. The commander is one of our very own as well, but our thanks go out to the entire team that support us. Axiom done a fantastic job in preparing for the mission and the medical and all the work that's gone into getting the crews ready to go fly. SpaceX, which is a fantastic, reliable Dragon spacecraft and Falcon launch vehicle, have prepped the crew and the vehicle, and it's out on the launch pad ready to go. And of course, NASA, we can't do any of this without NASA, who has worked with us along the way, allowed us to have this opportunity, and will work with us on orbit. And of course, the investors. The reason why we get to do what we're doing as a company and build this space station and do these missions is because the investors that are with us along the way. So it's the entire team that has supported us and worked with us throughout this last several months as we prepared for this mission, and we're thankful to them all. All right, guys, you're going to have a great time on orbit. We're looking forward to seeing you there on orbit. From all of us here at Axiom, we wish you good luck and Godspeed.
Just under 13.5 minutes, and everything continues to look good for launch of Falcon 9 and Dragon. Now, currently,
Peggy,
Falcon 9 began
we are
propellant
still
load
tracking
at
no
T-minus
issues
35
on
minutes,
Dragon
right
for
on time.
today's launch. We have continued weather evaluations, and for your awareness, we are monitoring an anvil cloud that is moving towards LC-39A. It's currently 5 miles away, and it just needs to remain outside of 3 miles for launch to continue. The weather officer is going to continue monitoring this cloud and will continue to provide updates to the launch teams. How copy?
Dragon copies, no issues on the vehicle, watching the cloud. I'm thinking very dry spot.
Good readback, and just a reminder that for the Falcon 9 valve, the Falcon team is going to be performing that manual evaluation of the manifold pressure until T-minus 35 seconds. And if we do not pass those checks, the Falcon team will call a hold. If the evaluation passes, there will be no call made, and we will continue with the countdown. So again, at T-minus 35 seconds following the manual evaluation, if we do not pass those checks, the Falcon team will call a hold. But if there is no call, we have passed the checks, and we will continue with countdown.
Dragon copies manual evaluation. We'll call a hold if it's not passing the checks. Expect no call if it looks good.
Good read back.
I like that comment. Thinking dry thoughts. Now we're talking about propellant loading. RP1 fuel is completely loaded on the second stage. Fuel loading is continuing on the first stage. We're just about full. It'll finish up at the T-minus 6 minute mark. Densified liquid oxygen loading is continuing on the first stage and the second stage. Both stages well underway. First stage is nearing a completion, but it won't wrap up until T-minus 3 minutes. The second stage just began a few minutes ago. That'll wrap up at T-minus 2 minutes. As we get closer to launch, we will do various checkouts. One is the thrust vector controllers. These are what move the engine nozzles around on the first and second stage engine. And when we move those nozzles, we call it TVC wiggles. Those will be done inside 10 minutes. We'll also be doing checkouts of throttle valves on the engine. Now the range currently is go. Air and sea space are clear. The weather, you heard the briefing from the Corps up to the crew. We're watching one anvil cloud. It's within 5 miles, but it's got to just stay more than 3 miles away, and we will be go to fly. And meanwhile, the Dragon team also had reported they're working no issues. Everything is complete through the countdown. The comm checkouts are finished. The access arm is retracted. The launch escape system is armed. The crew is strapped in and ready to go. We're coming up on final instructions of the crew. We'll hear that at T-minus 10 minutes. They'll configure their displays for launch. They'll get the last messages, and then we'll go into the terminal countdown sequence. Let's listen into the countdown net.
Dragon, SpaceX, confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
And SpaceX Dragon, we can confirm crew displays are configured for launch.
SpaceX copies. And on behalf of the entire SpaceX team, we are honored to have you aboard Dragon Capsule Freedom today on its next trip to the International Space Station and the second Axiom crew mission. We wish you a great mission, good luck, Godspeed, and enjoy the ride.
Let freedom fly.
Hear the crew calling back to the ground, let freedom fly. We see them applauding. Everything continuing to look good. We're coming up on 9 minutes to launch. Next major event is going to be engine chill at T-minus 7 minutes.
As John just said, at T-minus 7 minutes, we will begin to flow a little bit of the super chilled liquid oxygen through the turbo pumps, which that is basically chilling the hardware, performing an engine chill prior to the full flow. We do that in order to help minimize the chances of the hardware experiencing any thermal shock when that full flow of super chilled liquid oxygen occurs. Now we can see some venting from the vehicle now, totally normal. It is that liquid oxygen just vaporizing as it comes into contact with the ambient air.
And Kate, maybe this is an opportunity. You know, we always use the word abort. This might be a chance to let everybody know that there are abort callouts in flight that we're going to hear. Those are just heads up to the crew that says, should a contingency occur, there's different actions that'll happen at each various stage of the flight, when you're on first stage or when you're on second stage.
That's right. We should actually hear Commander Peggy Whitson calling those abort modes out as they are ascending and really getting to orbit. She is tracking everything on both her tablet as well on her leg, as well as the crew display above her head. So she is able to identify at which mode they are entering, and those modes identify basically where and what sequence Dragon would take at that point in time during the flight. Now we're about 10 seconds away from that engine chill for the first stage.
Engine chill has started.
All right, right on time. We've opened the valves that are letting liquid oxygen and kerosene fuel down to the Merlin 1D engines on the first stage. Our next major activity coming up at T-minus 6 minutes approximately. We'll hear the announcement that fuel loading is complete on the first stage. And one other comment, while we were hearing the briefing to the crew at the T-minus 10 minute mark, we also heard reference to a call out that may or may not be made at T-minus 35 seconds. Many of the checkouts of the Falcon 9 are done by computer in the last minute. There is one today that requires an engineer to look at some data. If, for example, that system had an issue, that would be called out at T-minus 35 seconds. Right now, everything continues to look good, though, on Falcon 9.
We also heard in the briefing that they are tracking an anvil cloud that at the time of the briefing was about 5 miles away from the pad. They are tracking it. It just needs to stay outside of 3 miles, so everything still continues to look okay on that front. The next call out that we'll hear in about 30 seconds is that Dragon has transitioned to the terminal count configuration. That's basically an indication that the Dragon spacecraft has taken over the spacecraft's countdown and will at that point be on internal power. At this point in time, RP-1 is now completely loaded, both on the first and second stages. LOX load continues on both stages. It'll wrap up at T-minus 3 minutes for first stage and T-minus 2 minutes for second stage.
Dragon tanks are pressurizing for Trongback retract.
Pressurization call out. We are putting pressurized gas helium onto the stage in preparation for opening up the clamp arm that's around the top of the second stage. That'll happen just at about the T-minus 4 minute mark. The clamp arm will open, and about 10 seconds after that, the strong back, the structure alongside the Falcon 9, will recline just about 2 degrees away. We've heard the call out, strong back is retracting. That starts the sequence now in the ground computer to open the arms and then recline that strong back about 2 degrees away. At liftoff, hydraulics will then pull the strong back to a position about 45 degrees away from the rocket as it flies out of the launch mount. You can see the arms opening up now around the second stage.
We should now be able to see that strong back retract just a couple degrees away from the launch vehicle. Upon liftoff, it will move back even further in order to clear the way for Falcon 9. Looks like we can start to see that movement now. This structure is what is utilized to horizontally integrate the vehicles while still in the hangar, as well as transport them horizontally to the launch pad and then raise them to their vertical launch position.
And we've got the strong back is now, you see a little bounce there as it stops.
Stage 1 LOX load is complete.
And right on time, stage 1 LOX load is complete. We're down to just loading liquid oxygen on the second stage. That'll wrap up just after T-minus 2 minutes, at which point we'll have the 1 million pounds of propellant on board Falcon 9 ready to fly.
We can see the vehicle continuing to vent some of that gaseous or the liquid oxygen that has now vaporized.
Dragon is in terminal count and is on internal power.
We have a live view there of the SpaceX team here at headquarters in mission control on the left-hand side, as well as the Axium team from their own mission control as well on the right.
Dragon SpaceX for weather. Looks like the system has cleared, and we're looking like we're go for launch for weather.
All right, we've heard a good news information to the crew.
Dragon copies.
We're letting them know that it appears the weather is going to avoid the area.
That is great news indeed.
Just waiting now for the call out. Liquid oxygen load complete on the second stage.
Stage 2, LOX load is complete. Dragon is in auto idle. Ground gas closeouts, expect loud venting.
At venting, we're now bleeding off excess pressure in the strongback. That's what's giving that large white plume as cold gas meets the warm Florida air and condenses the moisture. We're coming up on 1 minute where the flight computers will take over the sequence. Let's listen in to the launch of Falcon 9 with Dragon and the Axiom 2 crew.
FTS is armed, Falcon 9 is in startup and is now controlling. Dragon is in countdown.
Dragon, SpaceX, go for launch.
Dragon copies. Go for launch.
T-minus 30 seconds. T-minus 15. T-minus 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Engines full power. And liftoff, Falcon 9. Go Axiom.
Stage 1 Alpha.
Copy 1 Alpha.
Together we expand what is possible in low Earth orbit. Ad Astra and Godspeed AX2.
T plus 36 seconds into flight. A great view of Falcon 9 heading to space.
Power telemetry is nominal.
Stage 1 throttle down. Power telemetry nominal. We're into the throttle bucket as the first stage is throttle down power on the Merlin engines in preparation for max Q.
Falcon 9 is supersonic.
Faster than the speed of sound as we're getting great views from the first stage camera looking back at Kennedy Space Center Complex 39A.
Stage 1 throttle up.
Max Q.
We're out of the throttle bucket.
Stage 1 Bravo.
Copy 1 Bravo.
We're at full power and that call at 1 Bravo, that's another one of those abort modes. As we get higher and faster, the logic for Dragon should a contingency occur changes from stage to stage.
Impact chill is underway.
Chill announcement says we're getting the turbopump on the second stage engine cooled down in preparation for its light up coming up in just another minute from now. Again, great views looking back, and you can see the contrail as we left 39A and the shadow of the contrail against the cloud deck around Florida. And we're coming up 3 big sequences and a view live of the crew inside Dragon. They're getting ready. We're going to get 3 events here. Main engine cutoff, stage separation, and then we're going to light the second stage engine. We've heard the throttle down in preparation for stage separation.
Eco.
2 Alpha.
Stage separation confirmed. Copy, 2 Alpha. And back ignition.
Stage 1 boost back startup.
All right, stage separation. We've lit the second stage engine. The first stage is into the boost back burn, working its way back towards Cape Canaveral. Views on the left side, that's the first stage. Engines running as we come back to the launch site, or the landing site. Second stage engine nozzle is visible on the right side as we're powering the Axium 2 crew into low Earth orbit on the way to the International Space Station. Waiting for call out that the boost back burn is complete.
Stage 1 boost back shutdown.
Right on time. First stage completed the first of 3 burns heading back to the landing site. Second stage continuing on power and on trajectory.
Acquisition of signal, Bermuda.
We head northeast, the Bermuda ground station.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Bermuda is listening into the vehicle now.
Nominal trajectory.
And the crew hears the call out of a nominal trajectory. So 4 minutes into flight, everything continuing to go well. First stage heading back, and there's the crew on the second stage getting the ride into orbit to the space station. Coming up, we're waiting for the next trajectory call out from the guidance officer.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Love to hear those words. A nominal trajectory for Dragon.
Copy. Nominal trajectory.
And maybe even a little bit of excitement in the crew's voice. Commander Peggy Whitson calling back down, hearing that call out from GNC of a nominal trajectory. Left side of the screen, you can see the first stage. It's now beginning to orient itself so that the engines are pointed down towards the land as we will be descending towards landing zone 1 in Cape Canaveral. The 4 titanium grid fins have all deployed. They'll help guide They'll guide the first stage through once we get into the atmosphere following the entry burn, which will be coming up here in another couple of minutes. On the right-hand side, the second stage with the Dragon capsule on top, heading up the eastern seaboard of the U.S. We've just heard the call out of Boston. That's the New Hampshire tracking station, has picked up the signal.
Dragon, SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
GNC continuing to make those call outs that we want to hear. Everything
Trajectory
continuing
nominal.
to look good. And the crew echoing them right back down. Good comms with the crew. We've been able to bring some live video shots from inside the capsule as they're headed to space. And there's another view of the crew.
Stage 1 entry burn startup.
And there we heard that the startup burn for that stage 1 booster, you can see it there on the left-hand side of your screen, has now begun.
Stage 1 entry burn shutdown.
And conclusion of that entry burn, that burn helps to slow the vehicle down as it re-enters the Earth's atmosphere. The first stage sees high drag, which scrubs roughly 70% of the velocity by the time that landing.
SpaceX, trajectory nominal.
Love to hear that call out. Everything.
Nominal trajectory.
Beautiful view of planet Earth coming to us from the second stage views on the right-hand side. Left-hand side, our first view of the Space Coast once again. This booster is attempting a landing at LZ1.
Stage 1, transonic.
That booster is now traveling near the speed of sound. Live view coming to you from one of our tracking cameras. We can see the grid fins actuating to help steer the booster down.
Stage 1 landing burn.
Stage 2 FTS has saved.
Standing by to...
Stage 1 landing leg deploy.
There you
Stage
can...
1 landing confirmed.
You can see that first stage has landed back at LZ1. This is the first time that we have performed a land landing on a crew mission. Coming up next will be second engine cutoff, or SECO, and that's where after that engine cuts off, the second stage will coast for a few minutes until Dragon is commanded to separate.
Stage 2 is in terminal guidance.
We're expecting SECO to occur in about 20 seconds.
Shannon.
Copy, Shannon.
Commander Peggy Whitson continuing to call out the abort modes.
SECO.
All right, on-time shutdown of that second engine. Also confirming that the launch escape system is now disarmed.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal orbit insertion.
All right, and there's that call out. We can confirm good orbital insertion.
Copy, nominal insertion.
Dragon SpaceX, launch escape system disarmed.
We can see the crew playing with their
Dragon
harnesses.
copy.
Now that they are in zero-G, which I think we just got a view of our zero-G Stuffy. Clearly the crew is having fun already. Right after liftoff, I think we heard a laugh coming from Commander Peggy Whitson, which, being a NASA legend and one of the most decorated astronauts of all time, it's amazing to hear that even a space veteran as she
Expected loss of signal, Cape.
still has fun at liftoff. The next event that we have coming up at just around T plus 12 minutes is Dragon separation. That's where the Dragon spacecraft and trunk, so collectively referred to as the Dragon spacecraft, will separate from the second stage.
Acquisition signal, Newfoundland.
After that separation, we will begin to deploy the nose cone, which exposes the forward bulkhead thrusters as well as the forward hatch. That forward hatch is what the capsule utilizes to autonomously dock to the International Space Station. Going from left to right, everyone's having fun, clearly. We have mission specialist Rayana Barnawi. To the right of her is pilot John Schaffner. Then we have Commander Peggy Whitson. And on the far right, mission specialist Ali Al-Karni. We can see that the excess strap on some of the harnesses, as well as the writing utensil for their tablets, they continue to play around with as they are experiencing zero-G for the first time. At least we can say that for 3 of the 4 astronauts on board today. Now we are standing by for Dragon separation, which is expected to occur in the next few seconds.
Dragon separation.
And there you can see live on your screen, that Dragon trunk and capsule.
Dragon copy. Dragon copy.
That's a really cool view. That's
Dragon
actually
SpaceX launch director. A very great flight. Wish you safe travels. A few words from our chief engineer as well.
Thanks for putting your trust in the Falcon 9 team. Hope you enjoyed the ride to space. Have a great trip on Dragon. Welcome home to Zero G, Peggy.
that was SpaceX Chief Engineer Bill
Happy to be
Gerstenmaier.
here. It was a phenomenal ride.
Make sure you share the joy of Zero G with your crew.
We will do that.
Already you can see Dragon's Draco thrusters activating.
Dragon SpaceX, nominal dehumidifier activation and surface section Draco checkouts. Nose cone deploy is in progress. Hooks are opening.
Dragon copies.
All right, great news there to let us know that the hooks, there are two sets of hooks.
Signal Bermuda.
Two sets of hooks that are now disengaging. And once that is complete, we are able to deploy, open the nose cone. We should see that nose cone deploy in about a minute. It's a great view on the right-hand side of your screen from the Falcon 9 second stage, looking at the Dragon Freedom capsule. And of course, the crew on the left-hand side playfully acclimating to their new zero-G environment. You can see the zero-G indicator in the background. And I love this view. This view is over the shoulders of Commander Peggy Whitson, who here is on the left-hand side, or the left seat, and pilot John Schaffner is on the right seat here, looking at what they're looking at. These are the crew display panels that they utilize in flight to track which thrusters are firing, what phase of the mission that they are in, as you can see, where they are around the globe. All right, as we can see, crew getting acclimated. The nose cone hooks are in the process of being disengaged, so they are starting to open. And once that is complete, we are able to open the nose cone and expose the forward hatch.
So incredible. Well, today's launch is certainly one more for the history books, and yet the story is just getting underway. Leah, with the crew officially on their way to the International Space Station, how are things tracking there in mission control at Johnson Space Center?
Hey, Duke. Well, the chase has officially begun with Dragon heading toward the International Space Station. So with successful launch of Axium Mission 2 at 7 p.m. Eastern, the teams here at NASA's Johnson Space Center are going to be monitoring Dragon's flight to the International Space Station over the next 16 hours. Our role in this journey really kicks in at a period called Integrated Operations. This is where Dragon is much closer to the station. And at this point, NASA, SpaceX, and Axiom space teams are all in lockstep to get the crew safely docked. The teams here are preparing for a docking of AX-2 to the station at about 9:30 a.m. Eastern Time tomorrow. We're going to begin joint coverage of that phase at 7:30 a.m. Eastern Time. But for now, that'll be it for us in Mission Control Houston tonight, and I'll be back with you tomorrow for docking. Back to you, Kate and Duke.
Leah, Now, over the next 16 hours, Dragon will execute a series of burns to gradually raise and line up the AX-2 crew for docking with the International Space Station in what we refer to as activation and rendezvous phase of the mission. Now, in just a few minutes, the crew will get to change out of their spacesuits and get a little bit more comfortable for flight, and will enjoy their first meal aboard the spacecraft. I'm sure that'll be a lot of fun, the first time for 3 of them eating in microgravity. And then at 2 p.m. Pacific, they will get ready for a rest period that will last about 10 hours, 8 hours for actual sleeping and a couple hours for pre- and post-sleep activities. And then before they arrive at the station, we'll have 2 potential opportunities to chat briefly with the crew on orbit. One later this morning around 11:10 a.m. Pacific, and one early tomorrow about 12:10 a.m. Pacific. While we're hopeful that one of these will work out, neither opportunity is guaranteed, as they are dependent on both crew schedule and ground station coverage. But if we're able to support, we'll make an announcement on our social media channels no later than 15 minutes before the event start time. But in the meantime, be sure to keep tabs on the mission at axiomspace.com, and you can also keep track of Dragon's flight on spacex.com/launches.
And even if we aren't able to talk live with the crew, we will continue to provide updates on the mission across our social media channels. And starting at 7:30 a.m. Eastern, 4:30 a.m. Pacific on Monday, May 22nd, we will pick back up with our live joint coverage of the AX-2 crew's approach and docking to station with NASA. Please keep an eye on Axiom and SpaceX social channels for updates, as there will be plenty of incredible moments to share with you over the next 10 days. And so, from all of us at Axiom Space, thank you, SpaceX. Thank you, NASA. This is just the beginning. And thank you for tuning in. We hope to see you soon.